Welcome to the stream. We're going to wait a few minutes to let more people in. Anybody that came in, if you want to let me know where you're from, throw your name in the chat. Let me know what state you are in or what country if you are not in the U.S. We're going to get started in about 2 or 3 minutes. And tonight we are going to be talking about natural disaster preparedness, specifically mastering PACE planning for any emergency. PACE planning, primary, alternate, contingency, emergency. We will be going over that tonight in tonight's stream, and we'll be batting it back and forth with you guys, talking about current natural disasters such as the LA wildfires and all the other crazy stuff happening in the world. So we'll wait a few more minutes. Julian, welcome from Texas. I lived in San Antonio for a while, but that was probably 25 years ago. Devil Dog 5, North Michigan. Welcome to the stream. This is the 4th simulcast. We're streaming on YouTube, Facebook, and X at the same time with Streamlabs OBS Ultra. Previously, I was streaming on TikTok pretty much every day for at least 15 or 16 days when I just started live streaming. Hello from Munson. I always used to call it Munson, Massachusetts. So I'm in northern Vermont, but I don't live here. I actually do live in Massachusetts, close to Cape Cod, but not over the bridge, on the other side of the bridge. Last year, I spent most of the year in New Hampshire, and this year I will spend probably 98% of the time in northern Vermont, close to, an hour and a half from Canada. So I'm pretty far up here. Monson, it's got to be west, right? Somewhere in the Springfield area, I'm assuming, or somewhere in the middle of the state. I don't even know if I've ever been there. If you guys want to see the previous streams, last night I believe we went over supplemental boss kits, which is kind of not top of the line gear, but it's more mid-range gear. We went over that and kind of laid out every kit and went through everything. We did some electronics, satellite phones, GPS, stuff like that a couple streams ago, but all the streams are still, you can still go back and watch them on YouTube, Facebook, or X. Great breweries in Vermont. I don't really go anywhere. I kind of stay at the rental house. I'm here for work, and I'm in the middle of nowhere, pretty much on the side of a mountain, so I don't get out that much here. I've been working about 11 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I will not be home until the 24th, I think, and then I'm only going to be there for a day and a half, and then I have to come back up here. So for those of you who just joined, we will be talking about natural disaster preparedness, mastering PACE planning for any emergency. You'll hear me talk about PACE planning a lot. It doesn't just have to do with bugging in at home or bugging out to an alternate or contingency or emergency location. To me, PACE planning is relevant in everything. Shelter, fire, water, food, land nav, signaling tools, winter supplemental gear, tropical gear, whatever it may be. PACE planning should be a part of your everyday life. Same as if you have a fire drill at your house with your kids and your family. PACE planning should really be the same. You should always have your primary plan, but know that your primary plan could fail for whatever reason. And then an alternate plan, whether that's a family member's place, a relative, contingency could be the same in a more rural area, maybe further away, or it could be a cabin in the woods, or it could be a commercial campground that you don't think anyone will be at. And the emergency is the last drop dead, last part of your PACE plan that you ever want to employ, and that would be going out and trying to live in the woods. Because Survival Summit, we've done films with some of the top experts, and even the guys that can survive with nothing, literally nothing, would not want to do it, even with good gear, if they had to, unless they absolutely had to. I'm going to wait a couple more minutes to let a few more people in before I get into, well, it's not really a presentation because I really would rather be a back and forth, talk about stuff with you guys. But before we get into natural disaster preparedness, We're going to let a few more people mosey on in. I did a pre-stream on TikTok for about 5 or 10 minutes, hoping some people would come over here from there. And I streamed for the first time on Clapper, which is kind of like the American version of TikTok, but I think it's a lot smaller. And then I reached out to a couple people from, or I think one person from an old Discord server, but I don't know if they're going to make it in here tonight or not. I don't know what they're doing. I don't even know if they've seen my message. And for anybody who's new, who wasn't here before, I run EJ Snyder from the show Naked and Afraid. I run his website, and I'm going to still try to get him in here. He's been traveling a lot. He's been on the road a lot. He started a pickle company called Freedom Pickles, and I think he was in Florida recently, and I'm not sure if he's back yet from that. Good evening, Marjorie Mahuda. Good evening to anybody else who's here. Anybody who just jumped in tonight, we're going to be talking about natural disaster preparedness, specifically mastering pace planning for any emergency, specifically natural disasters. Like I always say, everyone thinks nothing bad will happen until it does. And then usually it's too late. Is my moderator in here? Thomas, are you on here? I haven't seen you come in yet. He's always late. I'm late sometimes, too. I think last night I didn't come on until 7:30. Coming on at 7 is not the greatest because there's not that many people on, but I get up early, so no matter what, I try to be done before 9, preferably a little earlier because I have to get up at 5. While we're waiting for people who may never show up, we'll go over the book that I collaborated and wrote with EJ Snyder from Naked and Afraid called Emergency Home Preparedness. You can get this on Amazon. There's a link in our bio on whichever social media platform you are on. There's a link in the bio to that book. That book is based on the film Ultimate Buggin' in Home Defense, also starring EJ from Naked and Afraid. I was not in that film. I prefer not to be on camera. Well, except for live streams, of course. I guess I can't really say that. Hopefully you don't hear that dryer in the background kicking around and making all kinds of noise. And the heater behind me. Not exactly the best location for a live stream, but it'll have to do. All right, I guess there's no sense in waiting, so let's just jump right into it. So when it comes to natural disasters, I mean, there's no better way to look at it than looking at exactly what's happening in North Carolina and what recently happened in North Carolina with the floods. There's still people living in tents in North Carolina. EJ went down with some people and did a lot of volunteering. I think they have a lot of stuff set up where I believe you can still give, winter coats, winter hats, gloves, things like that, supplies, water, any type of rations. You can still donate that to local companies that are in that area. So if you want to reach out to EJ either on Instagram or Facebook or send him an email at info@ejsnyder.com, I'm sure he can point you to the right direction if you want to help out some of the people in North Carolina. The people that the government seems to have forgotten about and seems to not talk about on the news anymore, especially since the wildfire started in L.A., which, don't get me wrong, is a huge, crazy tragedy that's still going on. The wind gusts, I think, are probably the strongest now through tomorrow night. So hopefully those fires don't spread even further and burn down even bigger parts of L.A. County. L.A. County is pretty big, but I mean, it had to have destroyed 15,000 structures by now, maybe more. I haven't really looked at an update on that recently. But that's, when I talk about pace planning and I tell people don't keep all your supplies in one place, try to have your contingency in your alternate locations, try to have caches en route, preferably in safer areas. Imagine if you were in LA and you had all of your stuff, all your water supplies, all your freeze-dried food, anything for self-defense, basically hoarded away in your basement. Well, you would have never had time by the time you realized you had to go to get out of there. So the chances that you would have been able to take your supplies, pretty slim. A lot of people there probably didn't even have a bug-out bag. They probably didn't have a bag with the basic core necessities you need. Maybe they don't need to have every section of a bag, but at least if they would have had shelter, fire, water, food, maybe not so much land nav and signaling. That's more for a normal bug-out bag. But if you don't have some kind of a go bag, whatever you want to call it, in your vehicle at all times, that's a big problem. I mean, if they had to get out of the house last minute and just rush into their vehicle, they should have been easily able to carry a bug out bag with them to get out of there, to at least help them in some way. But unfortunately, most people don't believe in preparedness until something happens, and then they all of a sudden believe in preparedness. So imagine if there was a grid down scenario or a nuclear war or World War III or something else that was a catastrophic failure, and the United States, and the government couldn't help you, which happened in Hurricane Katrina, and that was only isolated to that area, and they still couldn't help. Imagine if it were countrywide or even big swaths of the country. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to help you. You're going to be 100% on your own, with the exception of your friends, your family, and whatever community groups you may or may not have put together. So you got to keep that stuff in mind. And that lone wolf attitude where I just need me, and a weapon, and I'm going to go out and I'm just going to take it. No, you're not. If you're the one who's saying that kind of stuff online, most of the time, that's not going to be you. Because there's plenty of people out there who are going to laugh at that, and it's not, you're just going to find yourself pushing up daisies. So it's not a good attitude to take in the first place. A lone wolf has no way to provide 360-degree, 24/7 protection. So even a highly skilled lone wolf can still get outflanked. A highly skilled lone wolf can still be overwhelmed by, enormous numbers, or even a force of, a small fire team. So the lone wolf stuff, maybe if you're going to go out and live in the forest. But again, the experts we've made films with that do that for a living would not even want to do that. It's not as easy as everyone thinks. Overland Adventure, how's it going? Thanks for coming to the stream. All right. Whoop, I think I got a Discord message. See if... Oh, never mind. He is sick and he is dying, apparently. So I will not see him on stream. All right. So back to natural disasters, mastering pace planning. Like I said, if you're involved in anything in North Carolina or the LA fires, a lot of people are starting to rethink. Preparedness. The days of, and even after all the nonsense with the pandemic, a lot of people couldn't get supplies because everyone else was hoarding stuff. But they used to look at preppers like we were crazy. Now, not so much. Probably anyone in here knows at least one person who probably thought that and is now at least seriously thinking about having long-term food storage, some type of water filtration system, or even if it's just handheld filters in case of an emergency. And if you're anywhere near natural disasters and you've been through that in your life, hopefully you were prepared. And if you weren't, hopefully you will be in the future. Let's see. So one other thing to keep in mind is that, sometimes the natural disasters will escalate very, very, very quickly. You could get, 50-mile-an-hour gust of wind, and all of a sudden there's, 2 towns over that nobody ever thought was going to be an issue for something like a fire, and then all of a sudden that fire is engulfing your neighborhood before you know it. Or if the river floods or flash floods in the city. There's so many different scenarios that really, really happen quickly, especially like tornadoes. I mean, I can't imagine living in a highly tornado-prone area. That's got to be nerve-wracking. And hopefully people have a lot of underground shelters in those areas. So you just got to remember, everything when it comes to nature is completely unpredictable. And you need to have adaptable plans. You need to have a pace plan in literally everything that you do. The wildfires, they can spread just by some dude throwing a cigarette out the window, or somebody who makes a campfire and doesn't do it safely, or somebody maybe who's homeless or transient and starts a fire to get warm, doesn't really know how to take care of it, and then that catches the woods on fire, and next thing you know, you got a wildfire. And then you get a bunch of winds coming down from the Santa Ana winds, and then it's all over. Then next thing you know, there's 15,000 or 10,000 homes destroyed, neighborhoods completely leveled, looking like it's Hiroshima in LA. So that's how quickly things can happen. I mean, the wind patterns, drive hesitation, urban sprawl, the fact that they didn't clean those areas in the woods, they weren't raking out those forests, from what I hear. They weren't really doing any maintenance. Something about being green and wanting it to, I don't know what the hell it was about, but when you don't maintain a forest like that, especially in an area where the winds are pretty brutal, and it's very thick vegetation, you're inviting disaster. You just are. You need to take care of the forests that are, especially when they're surrounding, towns and cities, and there's millions of people that live there. You have to take care of that stuff. It just kind of shows you some of the policies that are out there are pretty stupid. Maybe some of them have good intentions, but they don't usually turn out that way. Forget wildfires. If you're talking about flooding, you got to worry about contaminated water. Contaminated water is a big one when it comes to flooding. You also have to worry about electrical hazards. You don't know if the power's been shut off. You might have a wire that's on the ground. You're not even supposed to get very close to that. There's been plenty of people electrocuted getting too close to down power lines, sometimes trying to take a video, sometimes trying to take a picture. You got to be much more careful when it comes to down power lines. And a lot of the people, especially during Hurricane Katrina, a lot of people, when the waters got too high, they went up in their in their attic. Now, if you're in your attic, how are you supposed to get out if the flood waters come up all the way? I mean, unless you got an axe up there and you're going to start chopping through the roof immediately, don't go up in your attic because you're not going to have any way to get out. Even if you have an axe, you know how long it's going to take? I mean, you might even have a older house with, thicker subfloor or thicker subgrade. You might have 2 layers of shingles. By the time you get through there to even squeeze yourself out or your family, it's too late. The waters are going to be already too high. They found a lot of people that had drowned in their attic because they were just looking for high ground. But that's not how you want to look for high ground. If anything, you want to take the high ground outside and actually get on your roof on the outside. You don't want to be boxed into your attic. I can't even imagine what that would be like. Realizing the water's coming up the stairs and there's no way you can get back out and down. Get back down and out of the house in time. So you got to be really careful when it comes to flooding. Earthquakes too. I mean, man, California at some point, based on history, is going to get a major, major earthquake. We don't know when. It could be 100 years. Could be tomorrow. Could be 20 years. But it could be a 9+ magnitude earthquake. Even in the New Madrid fault line. I mean, that could be a major issue as well. There's just a lot of crazy stuff that can happen at any given moment. So if you don't have supplies, if you don't have a bug out bag, if you don't have a pace plan, you really need to consider getting one as soon as humanly possible. Hurricanes and tornadoes, same thing. You got to make sure you pay attention to the advanced warning systems. Those advanced warning systems can save lives. You got to take them seriously because some of these storms can pick up speed and get a lot of coastal flooding and just a lot of, not even just that. I mean, hurricanes and tornadoes, you got to worry a lot about debris. When we were kids, sometimes there'd be a tornado and we'd run outside and play. And I'm shocked that my parents would let me do that because anything flying around could have killed us. Trees coming down, power lines, telephone poles, anything else flying through the neighborhood in a big hurricane. Not the time to be going outside and playing. Just like you shouldn't be out, swinging around a golf club or swimming in your pool if there's a big lightning storm. You would think that nobody would do that, but people do that all the time. It's completely insane. They don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. And even with earthquakes, you got to worry about aftershocks. If you got a huge earthquake, you're going to have bigger aftershocks that also come. So you need to be careful. You got to watch out for structural damage, gas leaks. The world is a crazy place. You really have to remember that. But one of the biggest things, like I said, is flying debris, storm surges, power outages, things like that. It's kind of an endless list when it comes to natural disasters. Heather Lee says the Mississippi River went backwards and flooded our area during the last major New Madrid earthquake. Man, that's got to be some scary stuff. I can't imagine. Hopefully, in our lifetimes or our children's and our grandchildren's lifetime, that New Madrid fault line will not go big, like 9+. That would fundamentally change the country in ways that I don't think anyone understands. That would make the LA wildfires look like, Joe Biden's kitchen catching on fire. If you saw that whole thing, you'll get the joke. If not, then I don't know what to tell you. All right. So basically, pace planning, which I always will talk about. Sorry, I'm just looking through the comments at the same time. Just want to make sure I don't miss anything. Your primary plan, you got to focus on your first choice for safety with a pre-identified evacuation route. So if your primary plan is to be at home, you want to have pre-identified evacuation routes, just like you would if you were planning for a fire that, happened in your house or in your neighborhood. I'm not specifically talking about like a big fire like LA, but you want to make sure that all of your family is on board with what your plans are, where you plan to meet if you guys can't if you can't meet up in your neighborhood, or if you got to get off the X because something crazy's happening. What's your secondary? Where's your alternate? Where are you going to meet? If everybody tries to go to your primary and you can't, where's your alternate? And does everyone in your family or everyone in your group know where that alternate is? Do they have routes to that alternate from wherever they might be, school, work, wherever they are? What about a contingency? What if everyone shows up to the alternate and they have to move to the contingency? Everyone should be on the same page when it comes to your family and whoever else is in your group, whether that's friends or whether that's other people that you work with that you've maybe done some planning with, do some training. You're all preparing at the same time. You got to have those secondary evacuation routes and meeting points. That's going to be critical. Even if, let's say you don't, and you say, you know what, I don't need to. If my cell phone doesn't work, I have a satellite phone. If my satellite phone doesn't work, I have two-way radios. If that doesn't work, we'll have ham radios. Well, okay, what if there's a major high-altitude EMP and none of your stuff or other people's stuff is not protected from that in a Faraday bag? Then your communications are gone. Then you're left to the shoe leather express where you're going to be using runners to get information. So without that pre-established pace plan, if you do lose communication, at least you already know where you're going to meet. And if you don't meet at the alternate, you already know where the contingency is. These are just things that you really want to plan well in advance. You don't want to try to plan it after the fact because it's going to be a major problem. What if your main road's blocked by flooding? You got to identify the back roads or trails, or depending on where you live, it could be completely different. What's your contingency? Are you just going to shelter in place when it comes to natural disasters, assuming it's not a fire or a flood and you don't have to get out of there? Do you have enough supplies? Do you have a minimum? And when I say 3 days, that should be a drop-dead minimum. You really should have 6 months to a year of supplies for your entire family. That's not cheap, but even if you don't buy freeze-dried, every time you go to the grocery store, get a bunch of extra canned goods. Learn how to can your own food. Get a freeze dryer. You can get them pretty cheap on Amazon, and you can freeze dry a bunch of stuff yourself. Get a vacuum sealer. You can vacuum seal all kinds of stuff. Get some food-grade buckets from Amazon, some oxygen-absorbing pouches, and some Mylar bags, and you can fill them with rice, which isn't really that expensive. You can fill them with pasta, and that stuff will last, some of it almost indefinitely, depending on what it is, like salt, honey. Honey will basically last forever, way longer than you'll live. Way longer than your children will live. If it's raw, 100% organic honey, not some weird preservatives that you get at the grocery store. You want to buy that stuff raw. Freeze-dried food's obviously awesome, but let's say you live in the city or you live in an apartment somewhere and it's, you don't really have, or let's say even if you do have a contingency or an alternate that will work, but you can't get there for whatever reason. Do you even have enough space? What if you have a small apartment in a city? You're not going to have enough water in there. And the problem is your tap water is either going to be shut down eventually or it's not going to be safe because the water treatment plant isn't running, so you're going to have to filter that. So if you don't have room to put, 55-gallon spare drums of water, you don't know if your tap water is going to work. What if you don't live by a pond or a stream or a lake? Or what if it's too dangerous to even go out to look for it? What's the backup plan? You really should have some sort of backup plan, at least water filters, and at least, even if you have to put, 20 gallons of water in your closet, you really should have something. Gallons, what radio frequencies do you have programmed? Are you storing your radios in Faraday bags? So when it comes to communication, I don't use ham radio. I have some two-way radios, and essentially everything I have that's electronic is in a Faraday bag. And I went through that, I think, 2 or 3 streams ago, which you can rewatch on YouTube, Facebook, or X. But I went through satellite phone, satellite messenger, GPS, plenty of power banks, solar power banks, bigger EcoFlow power banks with foldable solar panels to recharge all that stuff. I even talked about having a backup cell phone, which I showed everybody. Take it out of the Faraday bag. I have an old iPhone, so I use a Lightning to USB adapter, and I have USB thumb drives with thousands of survival manuals on that. Plus all the films we offer in USB, so I have a ton of instructional films on USB. So if there is some sort of a grid down scenario or an EMP, as long as there's no secondary and you wait a little while, you'll still have access to be able to look at thousands of survival manuals or how many ever survival instructional videos that you want, assuming you have a power bank that you can recharge with solar power. Panels are either built in or a separate panel, and then you should be okay. If you have ham radios, kind of the same thing. I'd be a little bit worried about repeaters going down, but again, when it comes to communications, you should have a pace plan. You shouldn't just have one thing. You shouldn't just rely on either a two-way radio, or even if you're not communicating, if you just have like a shortwave radio, you need to have a pace plan. So what's your pace plan for communication? Your primary, most likely, is your cell phone or your landline if people still have landlines. What's your alternate? Your alternate could be a satellite messenger. It could be a satellite phone. Your contingency may be your ham radio, maybe a CB, maybe walkie-talkies. And what's your emergency? Is your emergency plan maybe one of those other items that you wouldn't use every day? Or are you going to have to hoof it and do the old shoe leather express and send runners to get information back and forth like old school mafia? It really depends. But that's why it's really, really, really important. $2 from J4U. Thank you very much. I believe that's a super chat. Why no ham radio? So I do have a couple ham radios that were sent to me. Why haven't I implemented them yet? Because I don't know a lot about them, and I don't know anyone. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know anyone who can teach me, because technically my company made a film called Survival Communications where they went all through ham radios. But so Survival Summit I run on the side. Technically, it's a side job, and I work construction management full time, and I'm usually out of town most of the year, except on some weekends. I just don't. It's hard to find the time. I mean, with everything that I do for work, I mean, like these 2 weeks, starting yesterday, I'll be working 7 days a week, 11 hours a day until not this Friday, but the Friday after. And then I'll be home for a day and a half, and then I'll be right back here again. So I'm a little short on time between doing all the preparing, trying to get content out, trying to do the live streams, which I'm now doing every day. And I'm working on a book about pace planning. I'm almost done. I think that book has just under 40,000 words. And it's about 150 pages, but that's Word document pages. So in a normal paperback book, it's probably going to be closer to 250 to 300 pages. Gallants, great question, actually. What's your get-home bag when you are flying? So if I am flying, which I try to never fly, I usually will drive wherever I have to go, more for the reason that I don't want to not have everything I need. But if you need to have a small bug out or get home bag, you're going to have to check it. You're not going to do carry-on. But you could put almost everything in a bug out bag in a check bag, even knives. If it's checked, the only thing you got to worry about is maybe somebody stealing your stuff if they go through your bag. That's kind of a big worry. So, but I try not to fly if I don't have to. You know, when I used to be the COO for Sheepdog Response for about 5 years. It was a tactical company. And if I went to an event, I would drive. I drove from Massachusetts to Vegas for an event. So that's all the way across the country, short of California. So that's the short answer. I try not to fly. And if I have to, like I don't remember what the date is. I think it's in April. I'm going to Puerto Rico with my wife and my son, and I will have to do a check bag for that. But here's the thing. Even if you have just some minor stuff in your check bag, if you have a lot of skills, like if you can do a lot of stuff when it comes to shelter, fire, water, food, land nav signaling without a ton of tools and without a ton of gear, you'll still be okay. You'll be better off than someone who has $10,000 or whatever. No, maybe not that much. You'll be better off than someone that has a $2,000 full bug out bag setup, but no training. You could take a guy, even if you don't have a knife, you could find a flint rock, and if you know how to flint knap, you can make a blade. Get a little sinew, get a little charcoal and pine sap, and turn that into primitive glue. You can make a lot of stuff with nature. Obviously, you don't want to. You want to have the comforts of gear because it's easy, and in a survival situation, your pace plan for fire, as an example, is not going to be a bow drill. That's not going to be your primary. If it is, maybe there's something wrong with you. Because for me, the primary plan, especially in an emergency situation, is going to be a Bic lighter. Or I have a Bic lighter. Actually, I think I have it in my pocket because it's winter and I carry this kind of stuff with me even outside of my bug out bag. So I carry my Bic lighter in one of these Exotac, basically waterproof, shockproof holders. So I don't have to worry about this lighter getting damaged or getting waterlogged because I keep it in this protective case. That's just one example. I also keep stormproof matches in my pocket. I keep usually a ferro rod, which is this one, the Craftig. This is the 5-inch. This goes in my summer kit that I showed the other day, but I have an 8-inch for the winter that I would normally carry in my bug out bag, and I'd have one on me. I don't think I have it on me. I think I realized 2 streams ago that I may have left that one at home because I was using it. What else do I have in here? Oh, see, I'm over 40, so I probably wouldn't even need these, but these are potassium iodide pills, also known as KI pills. For radiation emergency, they protect your thyroid from radioactive iodine. And you actually can get these. You don't even have to buy them. You can get them for free if you live within a certain range of a nuclear power plant. But mostly women, children, especially pregnant women, and people under 40, if you're trying to flee an area because there might be radioactive material coming towards you, you're going to want potassium iodide. And we don't sell these, but I did set up an affiliate link with the guy who does sell these, and you can get them on Amazon or the TikTok shop. There is a link in the bio on all of my social media where you can get potassium iodide pills. I highly recommend that everyone have potassium iodide, just in case. Let's see. What else do I have in my pockets? Oh, so I have some Tinder tabs. Instead of the old school cotton balls and Vaseline, which is very messy, you've got to put them in Ziploc. They're very messy. These Tinder tabs are super cheap. We sell these on our website, thesurvivalsummit.com. They're waterproof, and they're really compact, but this one tab, you can rip it open and make a bunch of pieces, and you can start multiple fires, assuming you know how to build a good Tinder bundle. You can start multiple fires with these Tinder tabs. They come in a little tin. You can even make char cloth in a tin if you had to, if you run out of Tinder tabs. Preferably you have something like an Altoids tin so you can make some better char cloth. What else do I have? Oh, I think I actually have a lockpick set in here too. I should have that. Yeah. Survival Summit has a film called Survival, Escape, and Evasion. It's a little bit older. I think it came out in 2015 or 2016, but it's an excellent film with Jack Richland from Black Scout Survival. And we also sell a nice escape and evasion kit, which comes with covert, plastic, non-metallic, 3 different types of handcuff keys, handcuff shims. It comes with other shims to get into like combination locks and other types of locks. And it comes with Kevlar cord. If you're not familiar with Kevlar cord and paracord you can use if you keep a length of it on you, preferably with a loop on each end. You can put it around either rope, zip ties, duct tape, even heavy-duty police zip ties. You basically would loop it around and then put your feet in and do the bicycle, and it will not, the paracord and the Kevlar will not break before the restraints break. So we sell a really, really good, small, comprehensive escape and evasion kit, as well as the escape and evasion video. So if you want to get into that kind of stuff, you can go check it out on our website. The link's in the bio. But this is a titanium lockpick set. And these have come in handy because I work in construction management. When I have to, I usually do new buildings out of the ground. But a lot of the times they'll, if we have like a renovation and the building was sold and somebody else is fitting it out, there's a lot of doors you can't get into that are locked. And rather than smash it all down or try to take it apart, you can use a lockpick set, or if you get locked out of your house, or if you need to get into a padlock, preferably that's yours, not somebody else's, you can also use a lockpick set to do it. I put a video out a couple years ago that shows if you get really good and you train well with a lockpick set. I showed in the video where I could, with one hand, I could flip up the padlock and use the rake and the shim, and the tension bar, and I could pick the lock one-handed, just with one hand, not my other hand behind my back. So it's the same as everything else. If you get really good and you train with all the tools, no matter what it is, you're going to become proficient. But perishable skills. I haven't tried to one-handed lockpick a lock in a while. I'd probably look like an idiot if I tried it right now without doing a little bit of practice. Let's see. What else do I have in my pockets? I said I had stormproof matches. I don't want to look like a liar. I'm pretty sure they're in here. I keep Titan stormproof matches, which are a lot bigger and a lot better in my kit, but I have these Yuko stormproof matches in my pocket at all times. These stormproof matches, not waterproof matches, stormproof matches, which we also sell on our website, along with like 100 other things. You could light it, put it in a glass of water, and it'll still burn underwater. You'll watch it burning up, and when you take it out, still got a flame. Stormproof matches are amazing. They will stay lit even literally underwater. Everyone's like, oh, you just use a lighter no matter where you are. It doesn't work like that. You can, and that should be your primary, is a lighter, of course. But lighters run out of fluid. The flint can break. The lighter can break. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with a Bic lighter. So you definitely want to have a pace plan when it comes to everything, especially fire. So my pace plan for fire, lighter's the primary. My alternate is stormproof matches. My contingency is a ferrocerium rod. And my emergency, if I really have to build a bow drill or some other type of primitive fire, I would. But that's the emergency. That's the drop-dead option. Hopefully I never have to do it. Sometimes I keep a Silcock key in here, too, if I need to get into water, in a city area. I think I have that. I'll show that to you guys. And sometimes I also carry a cat key for heavy equipment, just in case. This is a Silcock key. So if you're in the city, you'll probably recognize that a lot of the outside water spigots you can't open without a Silcock key. So it's handy in an urban environment if you so need to use it. All right, let's see. I think that's all I have in my pockets right now. Oops, sorry. Just got to check a quick message. It's my moderator texted me and said, sorry, I was making music. I don't know if he's on here yet or not. Maybe he is, maybe he's not. All right, so we talked about, earthquakes, floods, wildfires, and if you missed the beginning of the stream, you can always go back and you can watch it again because all the streams now that I'm simulcasting on YouTube, X, and Facebook are available on all those platforms even after the stream's over. So you can skip through me blabbing about nonsense at certain moments and you can just skip right to cool gear or a conversation that you actually want to hear. So basically, the next part of this is the pace planning framework. So again, your primary plan, you got to focus on your first choice for safety with your pre-identified evacuation routes, kind of going over this again. Ensure that you have maps printed in case technology fails. And when I say maps, I don't just mean street maps. If you live more rural, you really, really, really should have a topo map. And you can get topo maps on mytopo.com pretty much for any area that you want. But if you're going to get a topo map, I just saw a mouse run across the floor in a rental. You little bastards. I thought I got most of them, but he just ran into the refrigerator. Anyway, if you're going to have a topo map, you really know how to use it. You really should know how to use a compass. Have something nice like a Sun 2 MC2. You can get a Sun 2 A30 a little cheaper. The Boss kits, the Boss Survival Supplemental kits we have on our website. No, I take that back. We don't sell the navigation one because the guys had a hard time getting the compasses. But anyway, you want to have a compass, a protractor. You want to have some skill. If you want to learn about land navigation, you don't know anything about it, or you might want to learn more, we also have an instructional film called Survival Land Navigation. You can get that in either on a USB thumb drive or online streaming only, so you can buy it from any country you want, because unfortunately we only send gear within the United States. But if you live anywhere else, you can buy the online streaming. Or you can buy the USB thumb drive and online streaming. I mean, we have a ton of films. 1 on bugging in, 2 on bugging out. Land Nav, Escape and Evasion, Survival Communications, Survival HD, which is a desert film. We have available now. The only film we didn't produce, Winter Skills, which is like a 3 to 3.5 hour film with the gray bearded Green Beret. If you're not familiar with him, we produce his first 4 films, but we have wilderness survival, bushcraft. We have a really good film on medical and trauma gear. It's called Wilderness Medical, also made with the gray bearded Green Beret. It's an excellent, excellent film. All right. Get away from the sales stuff. I don't want to be talking about that stuff too much. All right, let's see. All right, practical preparedness tips for natural disasters. So when it comes to wildfires, I don't know if you guys saw the news or not, but there was a couple who did a lot of their own kind of, I'm trying to remember the name of the tree. They planted a specific tree that actually helped protect the fire from reaching their house in LA County. And they did a lot of like maintenance in the woods. They got rid of dead standing trees. They raked out really deep into the property just so they wouldn't have, if they knew a fire was coming through, they wouldn't be feeding it. So they basically almost built like a firewall on their property. Now, in some cases, you're not going to be able to do that, but if you have the ability, you really should look into how to make your property safer if a wildfire does come towards your property. You know, keep the vegetation trimmed, you know, at least 30 to 100 feet from any structures. Use fire-resistant materials for your home construction if you can. Make sure also that you have, you know, N95 masks for smoke. If you're looking for a mask that's really good for smoke, a company called Mira Safety, they make 3, or they might have a new one. They make at least 2 or 3 different types of really good gas masks. They have it for NBC, nuclear, biological, chemical. They also have a mask now for smoke. And you'd have to look up how long it lasts and how heavy of smoke, but it's really good for getting out of a bad situation like a house fire or trying to get away from your neighborhood if it's on fire, like in LA. So they make some really good masks. You can even buy the cartridges, because I believe they're all the standard 40 millimeter. And if you have some of those old school Israeli gas masks that are really cheap, as long as they're still functional, preferably you got a fit test by an industrial hygienist to make sure it's going to work for you. But you can put those new filters on the old masks. And if the integrity of the old mask is still good, you're going to save a lot of money. You're not going to have to buy, you know, a $280 mask. You're just going to have to buy a $70 or an $80 filter. Gallants, do you have an off-site location to store items as a backup? How do you choose a location? So I'm not going to get too much into my own specific plans. That's my moderator is here now. Welcome to the stream. You're only 40 minutes late. Hope you made a good song. But yeah, so a lot of people, if they don't have land or other locations that they own, like a cabin in the woods, a lot of people will pick obviously your home is your primary, but they'll pick an alternate location that might be a family member's house or a friend's house, preferably in a more rural area or not too far. And you could do the same thing with a contingency plan. That could be another friend or another family member, maybe even a little further away. And that's where you want, but if you're going to store gear, if you're going to spread load your gear to all the locations in your PACE plan, you need to make sure that whoever's location you're doing that at is also being prepared. Because you don't want to stockpile a bunch of stuff just for your alternate location to not do any preparedness at all, and then basically use your stuff, and by the time you get there, maybe it's gone. So you need to think about that. You need to make sure everyone's on the same page. You need to make sure you have the right routes. You know, have a backup plan, another PACE plan. If your vehicle fails, do you have a side-by-side? Do you have a dirt bike? Your contingency, do you have a bicycle? If you have a lot of stuff you need to carry, especially if it's winter, do you have an ice fishing sled, something you can pull behind you? There's a lot of different ways you can do it. And ideally, it's tougher in the winter if the ground's frozen, depending on where you live, but you want to have caches. So once your PACE plan has been established and you know where your alternate and your contingency locations are, in the middle between your primary and those locations, so point A to B, point B to C, maybe point A to C, B to A, whatever it is, you want to try to have some caches. Now, what's in the caches? Maybe it's an extra water filter. Maybe it's extra freeze-dried food. Maybe it's extra ammo. Gallant says he has a friend who rents storage lockers, expensive, but works when rural. That could work too, especially in the winter. In the winter, I know a couple guys who pick locations that were scouted that were, you know, pretty large locations but abandoned. That's risky if you're going to leave a cache there because somebody may find it, even if it's teenagers going there to drink. But if you have a storage locker in the winter, that could be an excellent way to have a cache between point A, point B, point B, point C. That could be a really good way to do it. Because if the crap really hits the fan, people are going to be going to stores and anywhere they think they can find food, or any type of thing like that. They're not going to be looking through storage lockers because they're going to be thinking, what do I need someone's old couch for? How's that going to help me? So that's an excellent idea, especially in the winter, is to keep gear in storage lockers. And, it's expensive, but some of these areas you can rent like a very small space. And one of the things that's been going on, at least here in the Northeast, is they've been expanding housing based on a state mandate to have a certain amount of housing in all these towns, whether it's for immigrants or whether it's for whatever it's for. And when they do that, you start seeing self-storage places pop up, because the way it works is every time there's a new apartment complex or a new housing development that goes up, the self-storage people know about it, and they build 1, 2, 3 in that location. So if you notice a lot of self-storage places that have been going up a lot lately, that's because of the expansion of the housing, mostly based on state mandates to have more property and more apartments available. So I'm glad you brought that up, Gallants. That's an excellent idea, especially in the Northeast, because you're not going to be digging in the frozen ground. Technically, you could build a fire over your cache, but you'd have to wait. And if there's 2 or 3 feet of frost, good luck with that, because you're probably still not going to get down there. So, excellent. That's why I love talking to people in Discord. I mean, in the chat, because sometimes they have really awesome ideas. All right, let's see. So the other thing is, when it comes to fires, you want to have fire blankets. You can get fire blankets relatively cheap. They're not too expensive. If you can even get, if you don't want to go to Mirror Safety and get these expensive gas masks with smoke cartridges, they even sell some masks. You'd have to look around and see the best place to get them. But they have basically some escape hoods and escape masks, especially for children, that gives you a certain amount of time to get out of the house without inhaling a lot of smoke that could really save you. So between the masks, fire blankets, and again, have a go bag with essentials packed. And even you really should even have ID, cash, pet supplies, any type of medical stuff you might need. We actually just signed up to get involved with Jace Medical, and Jace Medical is one of the companies that can provide off-grid, antibiotics and other types of prescriptions in advance if you're going off-grid or you're going out of country, anything like that. You can get them, I believe, in the U.S. and Canada through Jace. Another one's called Duration Health, but I think they're only in the U.S. But we just got set up with Jace, and I'm going to be getting a kit pretty soon, and then I'll probably go through it in one of the live streams, and I actually am going to bring the Jace rep on so she can answer questions. So when we go over the Jace kit, everybody can ask, fire away, ask a lot of questions, and we can talk about the things they offer, what they offer, how they offer it, the legalities of it, because it is legal through real doctors and real prescriptions, so you don't need to worry about that. But we'll go through that once that kit comes in, because I really think it could help a lot of people. There's a lot of, especially when times get strange, there's a lot of times where antibiotics are hard to come by. And they're not as easy to get depending on what's happening. Earthquake, same thing. You want to bolt down heavy stuff. Bolt down your bookshelves, your TVs, anything heavy that's on the walls. You want to have safety latches on your cabinets. You want to have, same thing, emergency planning. You want your PACE plan. Everybody in your family needs to know what to do if you're in an earthquake-prone area. Obviously, don't stand near windows or under light fixtures. Hurricanes and tornadoes, same thing. Make sure your windows are reinforced. You got storm shutters. You always have, at the very least, multi-tools, some duct tape, a flashlight in the rooms. Pretty basic stuff. Marjorie Mahuta says, learn how to use your essential oils they store for lengthy times, and there are many herbs that can be used for antibiotics, such as oregano, dried oregano. Fill your jar 3/4 of the way up with the rest. Extra virgin olive oil. But it's set for 3 to 6 months in a dark area, continuously stirring about once a weekend. At the end of time, strain it through the cheesecloth, and you got a very strong antibiotic. And there's a lot of America and Americans specifically seem to have forgotten about a lot of the, things you can make from just regular stuff. There's a book called The Lost Ways. If you find that on Amazon, it's a really good book. It's got a ton of stuff in there. Teach you how to make pemmican, hardtack. There's other books by the doctor Nicola Pellion, where she goes over a lot of medicinal stuff when it comes to herbs. There's so much information out there that we're just relying on doctors and pharmacies and all this really stuff we shouldn't be doing. And we've gotten completely away from the natural ways to take care of ourselves. So if you really want to do yourself some justice, get into herbal and foraging and all that kind of stuff. Because I said it in the last stream. Let's say you're on your way back. It's going to take you longer to get to your either to your primary or your alternate, and you ran out of food. Maybe you only brought a certain amount of emergency food with you, and your days past that. Yes, you could drink water and you could stay alive. You'll have no energy, but you also need electrolytes. So if you're not carrying electrolyte powder that you can buy cheap on Amazon and get some cheap bottles like this on Amazon or packets like Liquid IV, you're not going to really stay hydrated, and you're not going to live that 3 to 4 weeks they say without food if you have no electrolytes. You're probably going to die sooner, especially if you're expending a ton of calories being on the move. Gallants asked, do you have a current recommended medical kit? Feel underprepared in that area. So we actually do, it's a drop ship. So you can buy medical kits, trauma kits specifically from us. They come from North American Rescue. It's all made in the USA, including the pouches, most of the pouches, because they sell to the U.S. military, and that's a very compliance thing, so they have no choice but to have them made in the USA. So most of their stuff, unless they have a few items here and there that they don't sell to the military. So I actually have some stuff from my medical kit here that's still out from my summer bag. And again, you could buy your North American Rescue kits from us, or you can go direct to North American Rescue. It really makes no difference. Yeah, of course, we like to make a little bit of profit, but you probably won't get it any quicker, because even with the drop ship, depending on how busy they are and what kind of stuff's going on in the country, sometimes you got to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get a kit from them. But they're one of the best companies that's out there for that. Let me just go through a couple more comments. David Werner, good evening, Jesse. Thank you very much. Good evening to you, David. Nebula, you're just in this for the money. Nebula, it's funny that you say that, because I used to get mad about stupid stuff like that. But how would you explain the first 7 years out of the 10-year Survival Summit has been in existence, where we talked about and recommended products pretty much every day in every instructional film and on all social media, and we didn't even sell products. We weren't affiliates for anyone. We literally made not a penny for 3/4 of the time we were in business. So now guys like Nebula want to come on and say we're just in this for the money. And this is even a part-time thing for me. I make a crap load of money in construction management. Survival Summit I bought from my former partner, and I do it on the side. So Nebula, I think you know where you can stick it, buddy. And if my mod is in here, get rid of Nebula, ban him on the YouTube, because we don't need nonsense. People that know us and have known how long we've been around and all the things we've done know that we've never been in it just for the money. It's never been like that. I push products all the time that I don't even have anything to do with. I just told the guy he could buy direct from North America Rescue and bypass my website. So how am I in it for the money? All right, no more talking to Nebula, because that person does not deserve any more airtime for saying ridiculous things. David Werner, I checked Amazon for electrolytes last night when you suggested it. What brand are you using? So right now I'm using Caged with a K, Kages. I think it's like $30. I don't remember exactly how many servings. Oh, you know what? I have a bottle right over here. Let me grab it. I'll be right back. I'll show you. All right, here we go. Can't get the zoom to do it exactly right. It's Cage Hydration, Cage with a K. And I was right the other day. It is 60 servings. You can get, 3 or 4 different flavors. This one's Glacier Grape. You don't want to suck down electrolytes all the time. You probably should have a couple servings a day, but you don't want to overdo it either. But if you're expending calories and you're spending a lot of time going home or whatever you're doing, building a shelter, you're definitely going to want extra electrolytes. And there's plenty of other electrolyte brands that are on there. I just found this one to be pretty cheap. And you can also get these little bottles on Amazon too. Let's see. All right. Sorry, I just totally skipped by the rest of the question about the medical gear. Essentially, no matter where you get your medical kit, as long as you have a good tourniquet, like the Cat Gen 7 tourniquet, which is my favorite, or the Sam XT, which is a ratcheting style tourniquet, or the Soft T some people like. Again, do not buy tourniquets that are less than like $30 or even $33 or $34. You probably won't find the Gen 7 Cat less than $33 or $34 or even $40 because the prices at North American Rescue have gone up. But you will find a plethora of $4, $10, $6 tourniquets on Amazon and eBay. Do not buy them. They look like this, but they are inferior garbage, made God knows where. The windlass, which is one of the most important parts of your tourniquet, is made of really cheap plastic that could snap. The stitching is not professional and it's not tested, so that could break. The buckles are also cheap. And in some cases, even the material is not very good nylon. One other thing with tourniquets, you want to have a cover if you're going to wear it on your belt or keep it out in the sun because over time, the sun will degrade the nylon material in your tourniquets. That's why people usually put them in covers. You know, you don't want to put a tourniquet on the outside of your backpack if it's going to be out in the sun all day. You want to put it in the pack or put, a legitimate tourniquet cover on it. So that's the main part of a kit. The other part is gauze, either an S-rolled or a Z-fold gauze. This is hemostatic gauze. This is called combat gauze. It's more expensive, but it's a hemostatic. You do not want to use the old school granules to pack a wound with because surgeons will hate you. It's going to get all into the veins and the arteries, and it's going to be very difficult to repair those arteries. So use one of these. And these actually come with a strip where a surgeon can see if there's any gauze left inside because they're going to see it. I don't remember exactly what they call that, but you can almost see that. Well, you can't really see it. It's not close enough. But anyway, this is quick clot combat gauze, but really any type of hemostatic gauze is going to be really good when if you have to pack a wound. So if you don't need a tourniquet because it's not an arterial bleed, it's more of a slow seeping bleed, and it's not squirting under high pressure, then you would usually use gauze. And then after you pack it, you would use an Israeli pressure dressing or one of these from Preparedness Medical. I think they're still around as a company, and they have one called the T3, and I have one, but I haven't been able to find it. I think it might be in my other kit. But the T3 bandage is pretty awesome. It comes with 3 different components. It'll come with, I believe it's a 4-inch Israeli pressure dressing, and it also comes with some packing gauze, and it comes with an abdominal, like a gauze pad. So it's 3 in 1, and it's really not that expensive. So just look up the T3 by Preparedness Medical if you're not, if you don't want the standard Israeli pressure dressing, either the 4-inch ETD or the 6-inch ETD from someone like that. The other thing usually you want the twin pack, is the hyphen chest seals, entry-exit wounds, whether it's by gunshot or by stab wound or whatever. Maybe you got a piece of rebar impaled, then you pulled yourself off. You're going to want to use a hyphen chest seal on either an entry and an exit or just an entry if there's no exit, because you don't want air getting in your lungs. That could lead to much bigger problems. You can get kits with decompression needles to help relieve some of the air pressure inside, but you really need to have the training. At least have taken a TCCC or a TECC course, although I don't know if they go over decompression needles in a TECC. I know they do in a TCCC. Another good thing to have is what they call a cravat, basically a triangular bandage. So if you need to make a sling, you can also do that with a shemagh if you happen to have a shemagh in your kit, which you should, because it helps filter out particulates out of nasty, muddy water before you use your good filter. Or even if you're going to boil the water, you want to try to keep it as clean as you can. And using a shemagh or a bandage or even a piece of T-shirt will help keep those particulates out of the bottle or out of whatever you're going to use for your water filtration. So essentially, that's what I would keep in a general trauma kit. Now, here's another thing you can do to make it even cheaper. If you don't want to buy a kit direct from someone else, because there's going to be markup, there's going to be markup on the case and there's going to be markup on the gear. So what I've done in the past, and I had a bunch of them, and I think I gave most of them away. I went on Amazon and I bought some little medical pouches that are super cheap. I mean, like $10, but they're actually made with good material. You got to find ones that are at least 500 to 1,000. I think it's called denier. As long as it's a really good material, the pouch is going to be fine. Then you can go out and you can buy a tourniquet, gauze, and an Israeli pressure dressing, and a chest seal, and put that in that kit, and you'll probably still have a little room for like latex gloves, maybe some trauma shears, things like that. And you'll spend more than likely way less money than if you bought a kit direct from a medical company or somewhere. Just don't tell North American Rescue I said that, because I do sell their gear. But that's what I would do, and I've done it. I bought the cheaper kits and put together my own medical kits quite a while back, and it was much cheaper, a lot cheaper than if you bought, But then again, I don't have it with me. It's in my truck right now. I have a Rig Series. It's called the Rig Series Eagle IFAC, and it's really small, and it's packed so nice. It's got a decompression needle, chest seals, pressure dressing, gauze, and a tourniquet in a really small case that I can put right on my belt or strap to the outside of my bag. They're not cheap, but you're not going to find a bag like that that's nice and streamlined with everything fitting perfectly, as well as trauma shears in the back. You're probably not going to find that in that same setup on Amazon if you're going to buy the bag separately. And those bags are made in the USA, so they're a little bit higher quality. So there's a trade-off. But if you don't need to carry it on your belt, you don't need something slimline, and you don't care where it's made, you could definitely get a bag somewhere else much cheaper and put together your own kit. Just again, never buy medical gear that's not from a reputable company. Let's say I haven't seen it, I haven't looked for it. I know they make a ton of fake tourniquets of just complete trash that will fail in the field and you might die. But I don't know if they make like a fake hemostatic, combat gauze. Maybe they do. I don't know. You can cheap out on some stuff, but a few things never to cheap out on. One of them is medical gear, for sure. Don't cheap out on. Don't cheap out on a saw. Silky is one of the best brands. Some people like other brands, but Silky is pretty much the cat's ass. This is where it's at. Cuts like butter. Same thing with a knife. Don't ever cheap out on a knife. This one's a Perseverance survival knife. They only came out with one production run, unfortunately. But it's made originally by Tops Knives for a specific individual, and you could only get it through him. You couldn't actually buy it on Tops. But my favorite, and it's in my kit in my truck, I mentioned it before, is the Mora Garberg Carbon Black. You can get the Garberg that's not carbon black, but man, the carbon black with the leather sheath, not the plastic sheath, is amazing. It's got a Scandi grind, so it's good for all kinds of survival. It's good for bushcraft. It's good for making feather sticks. A lot of things you can do with a really good Mora. Flashlights. So it's funny because nowadays there's so many good flashlight brands. Like, I love Nikkor, but Phoenix is good. Streamlight's good. There's a lot. And the old school philosophy used to be you only want flashlights with AA batteries because they're easy to replace. That's not the case anymore. Let me grab something real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. The new batteries that have the 18650 or the 2150 batteries, I'll show you what they look like if you're not familiar. And we do normally sell Nikkor, but I'm pretty sure we don't have any in stock. So you could probably get them on Amazon. You might even get them a little cheaper if you went than going to Nikkor directly. So this is a 3400 mAh. This one is an 1834. This battery is a little bit more specific. This is the Nikkor MHGTS. I believe this is a 2000 lumen. I have a newer P20IX, which is 4000 lumen. And I also have a Phoenix that's a 2000 lumen. So if you get a newer light, so the old lights were kind of a pain because you had to put the 18650 batteries or the little CR123s in. You had to buy a charger separately. And you had to charge your batteries constantly in a stupid charger. Now, you don't have to do that anymore because almost all the new flashlights, you can plug in either This one is, I don't remember what this connector's called. It's an old school, like from the old phones. But the P20IX, as an example, and my Phoenix, they're USB-C, which is much more universal now. So you can plug right into the flashlight. You don't have to take it apart. You don't have to take the battery out. You don't have to have an extra charger. Moderator, 3 books have shown up for the order, by the way, just delayed by a few days. I'm sure it'll be a lot more than that. Amazon has a really, really long delay when it comes to that kind of stuff. So anyway, if you can get a flashlight like the P20IX by Nikkor or whatever other brand you like, make sure you get a version that you can plug right into the flashlight. It's so much easier. And I love this light. This light's awesome. Super bright at night. I have a TM, it's short for Tiny Monster. I think it's a TM09 that I have at home. And that one's got a little bit longer of a throw, a little bit narrower of a light, and it's super, super strong. I don't remember. I'd have to look up what the lumens are on the TM. Hold on. Now I'm just curious, and now I'm going to look it up. I've had that light for a while. That's one of the old school lights that I actually need the charger to do the battery, but it's really powerful. But and you can't just use any charger. That specific flashlight has its own specific charger and its own specific battery. So they kind of did it a little funky until they really came out with lights you could charge right in the flashlight itself, and it's light years better now that you can do that. Let's see, TM9K. So I'm assuming that would be 9. Yeah, it's 9,800 lumens. It's still pretty cheap. It's like $159. But I use that one at my house because we have a bigger property and we have chickens out back. And I can see like past the fence and the property if I'm looking for like glowing eyes, if I'm looking for predators, if the chickens are acting a little funky. Sorry, I'm just reading a comment real quick. It's kind of a stupid one from a different platform. Not going to read it out loud. And the gun light, same thing. So there's a lot of decent gun lights that are out there. Surefire makes some pretty good gun lights, but there's a ton of brands. There really are a ton of brands. I don't have a specific gun light on any of my stuff. I still use a regular flashlight. You know, if I'm doing it with the pistol, I'm still doing it with one hand with the light. I really should get one, but I haven't bothered. All right, let's see. Where was I? You got to forgive me. I go off on tangents every once in a while just talking about random stuff. All right, let's see. Oh, so the other thing that we were talking about when we were talking about pace planning was the family plan. Obviously, establishing a communication protocol, whether it's group text, calls, two-way radio. You're probably not going to get your whole family on board with ham. They're going to have to learn how to use it. They're not always that easy. I still need to do it. I've been very lazy with learning ham. And you definitely want your pre-designated meeting places. That doesn't mean you might have an alternate or contingency location, but maybe if it's not something major, you have just a regular pre-designed meeting place before you would go to an alternate just to kind of meet up and see exactly what's going on. If you have family in your contingency or your alternate locations where you need to share information, you could share documents. You could put together a pace plan and share them on the cloud, or you could do Zoom calls or FaceTime or whatever it is. You just want to make sure that you're practicing and going through all these scenarios with your family all the time. And who in your family has what role? Who's packing the supplies? Preferably you already have your bug out bag set no matter what, all the time, every time. But if you're going to an alternate location and you have the ability to take as much of your provisions that you can from your primary, because you're probably not going back to your primary if something big happened, who's packing all that stuff? Does everyone know where it is? You got to have that as a plan. Like, who's going to be responsible for your children? Who's going to be responsible for maybe someone in your family that's elderly? What about your pets? You really should have a plan in place for all that stuff. And when I talk about community, having a community and having people in as part of your community, you really need to organize that. How close is your neighborhood? Especially if you're rural or semi-rural, do you guys have emergency kind of neighborhood response teams? I'm not talking about fire or police or EMS, but do you have neighbors that can band together, either for security purposes or someone designated for medical? Is there a doctor in your neighborhood? If you don't know anyone in your neighborhood, that could be a problem too, because maybe they're coming to your place to grab your stuff. And if your primary location you think is safe, maybe it's not so safe. So at least try to get a couple neighbors on board with at least putting some type of a community together. Get some kind of neighborhood response team. Figure out which one of your neighbors might need help. Just put a plan together. Even if you just meet, once every couple weeks and talk about stuff. Make sure you're going to map your community resources. Does Bob next door, is Bob the builder? Does he have most of the tools? Does, Dave up the street have a lot of shelter building skills? Who has what skills and who's going to perform what duties? Who's good at security? Are there any military in the neighborhood? Do you have either active or former law enforcement? You really should try to use everyone for whatever particular skill they have to try to help that community become a more cohesive unit, especially in a large-scale event or even in a mid-size event. And you want to coordinate drills for scenarios like evacuations, sheltering, all kinds of stuff. I'm not saying you got to go crazy, but you really need to drill it and make sure everybody's on the same page. Hey, Nightwolf, how's it going? Let's see. So going through the comments to make sure I didn't miss anything. Does anybody have any questions? We've actually covered a lot more ground tonight than I thought was possible. I didn't think we were going to talk about quite as much as we did, but that's the beauty of these streams. One person asks one question, and then boom, we go down a whole nother road, and maybe we're answering questions that somebody else didn't think of. So the reason I have this power bank here is because, and we don't sell these, you can get them on Amazon. This one's a 49,800 mAh. I think I paid like $35 to $40 maybe. You can get a 25,000 mAh. Yeah, gallons. Find the ham expert so you don't need to learn. The problem is I really need to learn because I'm out of town so often. And my plan is essentially cell phone. I have a satellite phone. I have a satellite messenger. I have some two-way radios, but the two-way radios would only work when I got close to a group. And I'm too far away to use them for my primary, and I'm too far away for my alternate as well. So ham is probably the next step at what I should be doing. So I'm going to rewatch my own instructional film that we produced again as often as I have to, just to get, because it was old. It came out in like 2015 before I was even involved in the company, way before I had bought it from a friend of mine who was my former partner. But I've seen it, but it was a long time ago. So I need to rewatch it, and then I need to buy, some Bowfangs or do a really deep dive search because I know I have at least two ham radios that somebody sent me. What I can't remember is, did I give them away to someone on social media? I may have just randomly given away. Sometimes I do that, and they might be gone. But I don't think I gave them away. I'm pretty sure they're either somewhere in the house or in the basement or in the attic above the garage. I have no idea. I tried looking for them, kind of half-ass a couple times. Can't find them. But I think ham radio could definitely come in handy. The other thing you could do, and it's in my truck, so I can't show it to you, but even if it's not for communication, you want a good weather radio, and you want a radio that has shortwave frequencies, so you can listen to a lot of different shortwave channels if you're looking for information, especially if you don't have TV, your phone doesn't work, you can't get regular radio. Shortwave radio may come in really, really handy. And the one that I keep is crank. You can crank it to get power, or it has solar and it has batteries. So they come in handy. But be careful if you buy super cheap ones, because sometimes they won't have as many short band radio frequencies. I think there's a link in our bio. That company, we don't sell them, but the company Practical Survival that makes these filters, they sell them. And you can get them from them. There's also a radio called the Voyager. I have one of those. And again, all my stuff, literally all my electronics, are in Faraday bags or EMP bags, which are just weaker versions of a Faraday bag, but still good for an EMP, high altitude EMP. And again, don't worry about solar flares when it comes to your handheld electronics, because no matter how big the solar flare is, they're going after, with 2 pulses, they're going after the long transmission lines, such as the power grid. The only thing that would affect electronics not plugged into an outlet and not plugged into the grid would be a high altitude EMP, because it has the extra pulse that the solar flare does not. So your cars are not going to break down with a massive solar flare. They won't stop running unless they're plugged into the grid. And if you have an electric car, you're screwed anyway, because you're not going to have electricity to recharge it, even if it wasn't plugged in. So keep that in mind. Big difference between a solar flare and a high altitude EMP. And I get a lot of comments every once in a while on social media where people are like, there's no such thing as an EMP weapon. That's made up. Well, there may not be an EMP weapon, but when you detonate a nuclear certain amount of megaton, miles up into the atmosphere, that creates a high altitude EMP. And they did it with Operation Starfish. A couple other countries have actually done it in a city and shut down a whole city. You can look up all this stuff. We know how high altitude EMPs work. So it's kind of weird when I get those comments, because they're very confident and they have absolutely no idea what they're even talking about. Or my other favorite is the people that say, oh, high altitude EMP, most vehicles are going to run. They're quoting a study that used vehicles from 2002 and older. They didn't even tell you which vehicles they were. A lot of it was paid for by the manufacturers of the cars themselves and probably insurance companies. The government didn't even put that much money into the study. The EMP Commission themselves, a lot of them admitted it was a terrible study. They didn't even put their equipment on full power to really show what a high altitude EMP would do. So it's one of the worst studies that was ever done, yet you could Google it, and almost every prepper site out there cites that study, and they confidently cite that study. I'm not saying that I think all cars will shut down in a high altitude EMP in the area that it affects. I'm saying a lot bigger percentage than people think, because if there's a new study, somebody tell me about it, because I haven't seen a study, especially with the newer vehicles of today that have smaller computer chips, which are much more easy to damage with electrical impulses or a high amount of electricity getting shot through wires and then working its way into your computer systems. And vehicles have a lot more computer systems too. And even if, say, 75% of vehicles still ran after a high altitude EMP, even within the zone, if 25% go down, where are you going to go? There's going to be gridlock. The traffic is going to be dead stopped from the cars that stop running, from all the crashes, from all the people freaking out. So even if you do have a running vehicle, if you're not rural, where the hell are you going to go? Especially if you're in a city or even remotely a city, you're not going anywhere. I mean, unless you got four-wheel drive, but you still got to get around, obstacles, bridges, guardrails. It's not quite as easy as everyone thinks. But just try not to pay too much attention to things you see on a lot of the prepper websites, because sometimes they're using old information. Sometimes they don't have a lot of information. That's just the way it is. I mean, we've put out some stuff before where, we probably could have given out a little bit better information. But a lot of our stuff, especially the older stuff, is like almost a decade old. So when in some of our videos where the guy talks about flashlights and using AA batteries, back then they didn't have a lot of power banks going on, if they had any, and they didn't really have the newer stuff they have now. So all my power banks, literally all of my electronics, my backup phone, I have a backup iPad, because it's easier to read PDFs on a USB on an iPad than it is a phone. It's too small of a screen sometimes. You could do it, but I don't like to do it. All that stuff is in Faraday bags. I actually have a Faraday bag right over here I could show you. And in this Faraday bag, I have a small solar panel for my satellite messenger, the Bivy stick, which, again, I don't sell it. You can get that from satellitephonestore.com. We don't have anything to do with them. We don't make a dime if you buy from them, but I think they're a really good company. And I believe the same satellite phone I have, the Inmarsat Itsasat 2, you can get for free if you sign up for their monthly plan for like a year. It's not that cheap, but you can still get the phone for free and not have to buy the phone. And again, satellitephonestore.com, we don't have anything to do with them. Technically, that's not true. We don't make a penny We make literally nothing on a plan or any gear you buy from them, but I did secure a coupon code like a year ago, and I think it still works, where you can save the $50 activation fee if you do sign up for a plan. And that code is TSS. So, if they still kept it active, which I think they did. This is a Faraday bag. This is 80 decibels of attenuation if you buy a Faraday bag from somewhere other than Faraday Defense or any other company that you've done research on. If they don't tell you how many dBs, maybe you don't want to buy it. So the EMP bags are 40 decibels of attenuation. These Faraday bags are 80. They're both good for EMPs. The beauty of these Faraday bags is that they block all incoming and outgoing signals, 4G, 5G, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, you name it, it's pretty much blocking it all. This is what the FBI, if they seize your stuff, put your stuff in a Faraday bag. They're not going to put it in the one that looks like a Mylar bag, the EMP bag. It's another comment we get, that's just a Mylar bag, or that's just an anti-static bag. Those EMP bags are not. They are not just regular Mylar, and they are not static bags. It's so annoying sometimes when you get comments from people who literally have no idea what they're talking about. They've never even researched the product that you're talking about, and they still want to make some weird comments. But hey, at the same time, if I ever make a claim on here or tell you something that you've researched yourself and found it to be wrong, I 1,000,000% want you to tell me. Because I don't want to be on here saying stupid things or making comments that don't make any sense. I don't want to be that guy. David Werner, if a car body acts like a Faraday box and you have grounding cable attached to the frame and a grounding rod, would that protect the vehicle? No. The problem with that is, even if it's grounded, especially with a high altitude EMP, there's the whole undercarriage all around your vehicles, the windows, that pulse, that high speed pulse from the high altitude EMP that destroys electronics not plugged into the grid is going to easily penetrate that vehicle, grounded or not. Now, if you had some type of a cage mesh all the way around it that wasn't solid and that was grounded, that could stop. But obviously you're not going to do that because you want to drive it. So a car would only really work like not a Faraday box, but for lightning because of, the tires on to the ground. It wouldn't work the same, especially with a high altitude EMP. You're going to want to get something that's going to shunt the electricity, something like the EMP shield, or Faraday Defense makes their own version. But I believe you're also going to want to put the traps in the cigarette lighter, in any outlets, and you're going to want to use ferrites, the ferrites that clamp on the wiring. But just don't do your research first. You don't ever want to clamp a ferrite on data wiring because that could be a problem. Only on power going to certain units of your ECU or whatever computer systems you might have. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to Spotify and look up the podcast I did with Dr. Arthur Bradley from Faraday Defense, EMP doctor on YouTube. But I believe that's a video podcast, and it's still up. I know it's on Spotify and maybe a couple others. But you can hear all about vehicle protection. That was actually the podcast where I first learned that a solar flare didn't have all the same pulses as a high-altitude EMP. Before that, this is like a couple years ago, I thought they were the same. I didn't realize that they weren't the same. So I've been trying to talk about that for a while. Because when you look at some of these companies that sell EMP bags and stuff like that, they'll talk about solar flares as if they're the same as high-altitude EMPs. I know they know better, and it's probably a marketing thing. And you don't know if it's going to be a solar flare or a high-altitude EMP, so you should have your stuff in Faraday bags no matter what. But when it comes to the vehicle stuff, sometimes you'll see an ad. I don't know. I'm not going to mention any company names because I haven't looked in a while, but I did see one of the big companies once list their vehicle protection device for EMPs, but they also had a picture of a solar flare or something to do with a solar flare for the same product when it's not going to hurt your vehicle because it's not connected to the grid. So that's just kind of like some playful advertising that's a little bit funky. But that's why a lot of people believe that. They didn't know there was an extra pulse in the high-altitude EMP because a lot of the people selling the stuff almost kind of sort of make it seem like they're the same without actually saying it. Kind of like I don't know, it's a marketing thing, I guess. All right, but Gallants, I am going to get, if I can't find my other ones, which I don't think I am going to find them because I looked a few times, I'm going to pick up a couple ham radios or at least one, and I'm going to learn about it. Watch my own film, and then I'm going to try to get licensed for it, and I'm going to try to learn as much as humanly possible about ham radio. But that also means that people in my group, at my alternate and contingency locations, I'm going to have to make sure they learn it as well, because otherwise, who am I going to talk to? So it's a little funky. Or, you know what? I'll have my son learn how to use a ham radio, and then him and I will both have one. That's how we'll start off. So, moderator, who's also my son, please make a sticky note and put it on my computer in the basement that I need to pick up a ham radio, please. And then put a note that says you need to train with this, don't just buy it. Not that I won't remember that, but sometimes you need a little smack to keep going and do what you're supposed to be doing. All right, moderator, let me know how many of your books you ended up selling tomorrow. It's probably like a 3-day lag. So my son wrote a book. It's called Called by Name, A Teen's Journey to Faith. If you are not in Christianity, I don't care. I'm going to tell you about the book anyway. My son he's 15. He wrote a book. It's about 112 pages. It's available on Amazon. I did put the link in the Survival Summit bio if you guys want to check it out. Or you can just go straight to Amazon directly and look up Called by Name, A Teen's Journey to Faith. And check it out. Or don't. Moderator, did you ban that last guy who was being weird and saying I was only on here for the money? I'm just curious. Nebula was his name. Might have been a little extreme. Probably could have just muted him in the chat. But Mr. Moderator, are you still there? All right. Moderator, also let me know how many, we only have I think we have 27 people watching right now. I'm curious as to how many are on YouTube, how many are on Facebook, and how many are on X. I just want to kind of keep track of, all right, so you timed them out. That's better. Way better than banning. There's no need to ban somebody, but just time them out for a day. That's fine. And if he comes back tomorrow and acts like a weirdo, then we'll ban him again. Or we'll ban him for good, which I am known to do. Because there's just no need to, no need to be rude to people for no reason. Most of the time, if I have to ban somebody from a live stream, it's because they say something directed towards the audience, not just me. They say something directed towards people in the chat, other people, who are part of this discussion. And that, they can say whatever they want about me. But, just don't act like a fool. And definitely don't try to disparage other people that are in the chat or other people that are in the stream. It's just not necessary. It's delayed, so it takes a second to answer. 7 on YouTube, 15 on Twitter, and he doesn't know about Facebook, but I can actually look on my phone and see. Facebook's been really slow when it comes to viewership. I don't know why. We have like 140,000 people on there. It's kind of crazy. All right, Facebook has one person, and I'm pretty sure it's my aunt, by the way. It's a family member, so that makes it even worse. That the only person who's on from Facebook, a relatively good-sized channel for us, is a family member. She may not even be here anymore. I'm not sure. She might be. But she's probably the only one on here from Facebook. So I don't know. Is Facebook just not pushing this out? I still have a hard time getting people from TikTok to come to this stream. I think there's 1 or 2 people who might be in here from TikTok. But some nights on TikTok, there's, 50, 60. It'll peak up to 100 and something. But too restrictive, so I'm not going to do full streams on there anymore. I streamed on Clapper for the first time, which is basically the American version of TikTok, just much smaller. But if they ban TikTok, maybe it'll be a lot bigger. And I think I had 4 or 5 people. I think we only have like 99,000 something people on Clapper. I don't go on there very often. I've never streamed on there until today. And that was a pre-stream to let them know to come here for the main stream. And anybody who's curious, these simulcasts that are on X, Facebook, and YouTube, I'm not doing Instagram because Instagram forces the screen too narrow and it's too much of a close-up. So if I'm showing stuff on the table, they're not going to see it. And for whatever reason, the Instagram chat does not show up in the multi-stream chat on Streamlabs OBS, so I don't know why. David Warren, I don't think they are sending out notifications. You were on 45 minutes before I was aware you were even live. Man, that's disheartening. I did put an event on Facebook that's a recurring daily event, but Facebook's funky with stuff like that. If you get a video that's decent, they won't really suppress the views so much. But if you do an event, or if you do anything that has a link or anything that they think could be a sale, not just an event, they don't push it unless you pay for it. So unless you pay for Facebook ads, they're not going to kick it out there. So eventually, maybe I'll put like a cheap, $10, $20 a day ad just so people can physically see the event and know to come here, at 7 p.m. every day if they choose to. So I might do that. I might just put an ad out for that event just so people will actually get notified or see it in their feed, especially if they're following me or us. People don't just come on Survival Summit for me. Most people didn't know who I was 3 weeks ago before I started live streaming. They usually come on for all the videos that our instructors, video clips from the instructional films that our instructors have, not our instructors, but instructors that we've used to make films with. We don't have any of our own instructors. Those guys are all independent. So a lot of what you see is clips from our instructional films. Or I've been making a lot more of my own clips lately. And for a while, I was cutting up a lot of these live streams and putting them out as, short versions. And I still have a lot that I can push out on social. But with Streamlabs OBS, all these streams you can rewatch on all three of these channels, even after they're over. So there's really not a lot of sense to put too many shorts out because people can just watch the whole thing. Still probably won't hurt to put a few shorts out just to get people interested in the stream. But at some point, I'm going to have to stop being cheap, and I'm going to have to probably advertise the stream a little bit because it could take forever to grow this into something bigger. Why do I want to grow this into something bigger? Well, better audience, maybe more website sales. But again, I push stuff that I don't sell all the time too, so it's not just about money. But I like doing it. I like coming on here. I like talking to you guys. I like going over survival stuff. I could have, when I went back to work, I could have just stopped doing anything on Survival Summit. We don't do any advertising, hardly ever. Once in a while, I'll promote like a TikTok video for something. Like I promoted my son's book, and I don't make any money from that. That's all that money my son will make from that book on Amazon. So I'm not taking a dime. I give him a lot of money for a lot of stuff, so I kind of want to make it his own money so he stops using me as a bank. So I hope you guys go buy his book because then that's less money I have to give to him all the time. So buy as many of that book as humanly possible. If you have any teenagers or any young adults in your household or cousins or whoever, just buy that book so my son can stop asking me for money. Gallants, do you do ammo repacking? Nope, I do not. I thought about it. I have a cousin, I think, who has a bunch of repacking equipment, but I just never got into it. I still have quite a bit of stockpile of ammo anyway, but repacking would be great, but I just never got into it. I do know some people who do, people who like press their own stuff, and I just never got into it. I don't have a lot of time for extra hobbies, unfortunately. And these streams aren't really hobbies. I get back from work. I usually will eat something, do a little laundry, get ready for the stream, come on the stream, and then as soon as the stream's over, I go to bed. Then I go to work, usually there for most of the time, especially these 2 weeks, I'll be there for 11 hours a day. Unfortunately, I can't stream during the day because there's some people in my company that would see it, and I got stuff to do at work. I can't be streaming during the day when I'm trying to actually get a project done. The project's not huge. The one I'm on now is maybe 10 million, but it's a brand new out of the ground. It's not, not a huge building. It's like 25,000 square feet, which is relatively small for the buildings I usually supervise. So I don't have the time, even if I wanted to live stream during the day. And if I tried, my company would have some questions. Hey, man, what the hell were you doing today? Why do you ask? Well, we saw you on a live stream on social media, dummy. That would be really hard to explain. But most of the time, I'm going through submittals or going through drawings or helping guys in the field. It keeps you busy. They don't feel like 11-hour days because there's always a lot going on, especially when there's a lot of people on the job. You sometimes you can't get more than 10 feet without somebody asking you a question. So I like it. I don't like traveling as much, but I also, strangely enough, don't always mind traveling. It's a weird mix. I don't know. It's hard to explain. Gallants, glad I found your channel. Will be watching moving forward. Thanks. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think so. There's a company the company that makes these water filters, that Practical Survival. They're going to do it for us. They're attempting to get all of our instructional films on Amazon and on the TikTok shop if it doesn't get banned. So it might even be easier to find our films than just going to our website, hopefully. Hopefully this year, within the next few months, hopefully in the first quarter of this year, a lot of that stuff will already be listed, and we'll get a little more exposure that way. Because I really want to get... The other reason for the stream is over time, I'd like to get some YouTube members, some monthly paying members, and try to figure out some benefits we can do for them. Because I'd like to take a lot of that... I'd like to take a lot of the streaming, if we can get it to be financially viable. I'm still going to do it no matter what, but if I can get it to start making money, then we can do giveaways more often, and then I can start putting money together to start putting out new instructional films to make even better content. Nightwolf, what's a good bug out bag brand? There's so many brands out there. I like 511. I use the 511 Rush 12. I have a Rush 24. I also have a Rush 72, which is what I use for winter, which I believe is a 55 liter. And I don't know if I'm going to go through the full bug out bag tomorrow or not. I was talking about doing it tomorrow and Thursday. It could be Thursday, Friday, but it still could be tomorrow. But it's going to take a couple streams to get through all that stuff, especially all the winter supplemental gear. Another one is the Covert 18, which is no molly. It doesn't look tactical. What's the other one? There's so many good brands. Maxpedition makes some really rugged backpacks. Like, we don't sell this, but you can still get it. I think I've had this for about 15 years. This is basically a sling pack. This is the No Attack Gear Slinger by Maxpedition. I have jammed this thing with massive amounts of stuff, and it's just such a rugged backpack. And even though it's only got one strap, it's got the strap in the front, so you can strap it to your chest so it's not going to slide off your shoulder. I also have, at work, I put my laptop in a Maxpedition. It's right over here. I'm actually just going to grab it and show you. Hold on a second. So if you work in an office or you work where you have to bring a computer to work every day, this is a Maxpedition laptop bag. It's a little bit tactical. You can put, some patches on here if you choose to. But Maxpedition, it's a really good quality. I've had this laptop pack probably for the same amount of time, at least somewhere between 12 and 15 years. And the cool thing about this is you can use it with the regular handles, or it has backpack straps and a clip in the front to go around your chest to keep it not just as a backpack, but clip to the chest, kind of like some of the backpacks, to help it from moving around, sliding around. And the backpack straps can fold up and go inside the pack. I don't remember what this one's called. I don't know if there's a tag in here or not. No, it just says Maxpedition. It's just basically a Maxpedition laptop bag. They might still make them. So if you work in an office, this could be really handy. Now, also in here, so I have my EDC gear. My EDC gear is usually a multi-tool, a tourniquet, a flashlight, some fire gear in the winter, the lockpick set, some other random stuff. And then in here, in my laptop bag, as a backup, to the backup, to the backup. Oh, I do have them. These are the Yuko Titan. We don't sell these, but you can get them pretty much anywhere. These are the really, 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 really good stormproof matches. They're much bigger. They burn a lot longer. Again, you can burn them underwater and pull them out. They'll still be burning. They're amazing. And this Titan case is really, really good. It's not, you could, float it down a river. It's going to be fine. You can put it around a lanyard around your neck if you want to do that. And then I also have, so this is an emergency survival wrap by North American Rescue. You can use this, more as a medical thing if you need to wrap yourself, but you can also use it as a shelter. They're not that cheap. They're like $6 or $7, which is pretty expensive for a survival wrap. I also have some stormproof matches. They're not quite as good as the Titan, but they're still pretty good. Those are batteries, but they're for my mouse, my wireless mouse, not for a flashlight. And I have another one of the triangular bandages, or what you would call a cravat, or however you want to call it. I have some Tinder tabs in here. Wait, I think I found the ferro rod I usually keep in my pocket. It was in my laptop bag for some reason. I think this is the one. Again, if you're brand new to ferrocerium rods, you got to scrape the black coating off. So see that silver? This one I've used a few times, quite a few times, but only on one side. I'm not going to scrape the protective coating until I need to get to that side. And then I also have in here a Sawyer Mini. And in the other kit, I usually keep the straw. And in my main bug out bag, I keep a Grail GeoPress and a stainless steel bottle to boil water, of course, especially in the winter. And a Fresnel lens. So a Fresnel lens is basically kind of like a magnifying glass, but you can start a fire using just the sun, so you don't need a lighter, you don't need to waste any resources. Just make a good little tinder bundle and use a magnifying glass to start a fire. As long as you have good sun, you don't need to waste any actual fire starting resources to do it. And those are super cheap. You can get them on Amazon like crazy cheap. I don't think we sell those because we offer free shipping. And if somebody bought a Fresnel lens, I'd probably lose money. So sometimes the smaller stuff I don't put on the site because the free shipping can really be a kick in the pants. We lose a fair amount of profit doing that, but it's the only way to try to keep up with Amazon. Most other companies don't do the free shipping because they're not as dumb as I am, apparently. But hey, sometimes it's not all about money. It's trying to do the right thing, trying to get it out there, for more people to get. And if you make a little less profit, maybe someday you make more volume and you make up for it. That hasn't happened yet, but that's okay. I've had free shipping now for like 2 years, and I'm probably never going to reverse it just because, it's good. If you got Amazon Prime, even with free shipping, you can't compete with that because I can't get you something in 2 days. There's no way. Those guys have, thousands and thousands of or probably tens of thousands of drivers and vans, and they got a pretty crazy setup. Gallon asked, do you travel with body armor? And the answer is no. I have been looking into, in the film Ultimate Bugging and Home Defense we did with E.J. Snyder, there is a backpack they make where the backpack can flip over. You can put it around your neck, and it actually is body armor, and you can put it on the front and the back. It's pretty handy, pretty fast, pretty easy to put on. Most of the armor that we have is heavier, and it's, anti-spall plates, so it's not something I'd want to carry around because it's way too heavy. But it's more durable. It's going to take better rounds from, higher caliber rifles than anything else. But that's more of like, it's for very limited situations. And it's a ton of weight, so try not to carry too much. Gallon says, ever since getting more prepared at home, I bug out when traveling for work. I mean, honestly, everyone should have a bug out bag. If you're not covering shelter, fire, water, food, land nav, signaling, basic tools, self-defense, everywhere you go, no matter where you're going, you might want to rethink that because you don't ever know what could happen. You could be 2 miles down the road and something crazy could happen. Or like I always say, you could be couple miles down the road and you go off the road in the middle of a winter storm. You're only going to someone's house or to the store, so you didn't dress very warm. Well, what happens? You don't have any winter boots, hat, gloves, no jacket. What happens if you have to walk home? You know how long it would take to get home, especially like in a blizzard or sub-zero conditions? If you're wearing like dress shoes or sneakers, that would be a nightmare. Yeah, Gallants, the object is don't get hit. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't carry some type of armor with you because most people probably should. But where I am for work, pretty rural. Doesn't get any more rural than this. Where I am at home, little less. But it really depends on where I'm going, because sometimes I go through states that are very restrictive, going up through the Northeast, so it can be a little tricky. All right, let's see. I am going to jump soon because I have to be up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but I am going to take some more questions. If you guys have any questions, feel free to shoot them in the chat. This is the fourth stream in a row where I don't think anyone from X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, other than my moderator, I don't think anybody has said anything in the chat from Twitter. And I really want to hear from the Twitter people and figure out where are you from? What country, what state, if you're in the United States, what brought you here, what you like about the stream, what you think sucks about the stream, whatever you want to say, feel free to say it. Maybe not anything. Don't say anything really dumb. I don't want to have my mod time me out. Oh, Nightwolf. I just remembered another good brand, and Graybeard Green Beret uses a backpack he really loves a lot. I think he even had it when he was in the military, doing a lot of stuff, or when he was a contractor after the military, is Mystery Ranch. He really seems to like the Mystery Ranch backpacks. I don't own one, but he's a big, big fan of Mystery Ranch. There's so many good brands out there, though, now. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's even some cheaper brands I've seen, at little Army Navy stores. They're real cheap, and they're made probably overseas, but some of them actually seem like they're decent quality. The zippers aren't terrible. The material seems to be pretty rugged. So don't be, like I said, don't cheap out on tools. Don't cheap out on a saw or a knife or your medical gear or fire starting stuff. But occasionally you can get cheaper pouches or backpacks or things like that. And, just beat the hell out of them. Test them out. Get a cheap one. Just beat the crap out of it. Don't treat it good and see if it lasts, because some of that stuff might be fine. Gallants, I had the same thought yesterday in Boston suburbs. Left home, freezing cold, was not prepared, eye-opening moment. Yeah. Now imagine if you got stranded and went off the road somewhere and there was no one out and you had to walk miles. You may end up with frostbite. You may lose some toes. You may lose some fingers. I mean, imagine. I try to instill this in my son because a lot of the times, kids, they go to school, they're wearing like a T-shirt. Maybe they bring a sweatshirt when it's 0 degrees. Because they're like, car's heated, building's heated, house is heated. What do I need to worry about? Well, it's not the same as if you go to Florida and you're always in the AC except when you're outside. You're probably not going to die unless you're dehydrated. But in the winter, anything bad could go wrong. And you will be freezing your ass off and possibly even get frostbite and maybe even die. It happens to people all the time. Winter is no thing to mess around with. So again, especially if you have kids, keep that extra stuff. Even if you have to throw it in the trunk, extra snow boots, extra glove, hat, whatever, mittens, scarf, earmuffs in particular, because your ears can get pretty cold. You want to have that stuff in the winter. Just throw that stuff in a dry bag or throw it in a backpack and throw it in your trunk and forget about it. So if you ever need it, it's there. You wouldn't hurt to throw a wool blanket back there too. Wouldn't hurt to throw a couple sleeping bags back there. And if you have your bug out bag, you got all the rest covered. You got all your shelter, water, fire, food, land nav, signaling, all that stuff is covered. Just add some winter supplemental gear. Make sure you have a tire jack in case you need to change a tire. Make sure you have one of those power banks instead of, stupid jumper cables where you need another vehicle. Those jumper packs can work without another vehicle. You just set it up, turn it on, boom, start the car. They work well. I've used them before. And you can get wireless tire inflators too, assuming you don't have a hole in your tire and stuff like that. It's all about preparation. It's all about pace planning. Pace planning goes literally to everything. Let's say you have an empty gas container in your trunk, because if you ever get stranded, you're going to want to take it to the gas station, fill it up. Maybe they don't have a gas can there for whatever reason. What's your alternate? Do you have, a siphon kit if something really bad happens and you can only get gas from an abandoned vehicle? Not going to hurt to have a siphon kit. There's a lot of different options. Got a pickup truck? Don't just keep a gas can. Keep a full gas can. I keep 3 5-gallon gas cans in the back of my truck all winter long, 15 gallons. And I could get from here to home and probably halfway back with that gas. Maybe not halfway. Maybe like a third of the way back and then all the way back. Maybe a third. But I can get home no matter what. And especially in the winter, Don't let your truck go down to a quarter tank or an eighth tank. When it hits a half a tank, fill it up. Don't be lazy. Sometimes I'll be lazy and I'll be like, man, I really don't want to stop and get gas. I still have a half a tank of gas, but I do it anyway. I do it anyway because you never know. What if something crazy happened and you had to hit the road immediately and you didn't have any spare gas and you don't have enough gas to get home? Gallant says no harm in hoping for the best as long as you've prepared for the worst. Exactly. Always prepare for the worst. Don't let people say, oh, just a crazy prepper, you're wasting it. Don't listen to any of that nonsense. Because most likely those people have never been in a really bad situation or even come close to a really bad situation. They don't get it. But when they do encounter that bad situation, they will change their tune immediately. And hopefully they don't end up dying because of it. So to me, preparedness is, you should be prepared in literally every aspect of your life. Depending on what you do for work, if you went to work unprepared all the time, they'd fire you. Well, when it comes to life and death, if you're unprepared, you're going to die. Or, worse, someone in your family could die. One of your children, your wife, your sister, your brother, whoever. You don't want that on your conscience because you decided, you were going to go, let's say you're going to drive a half an hour away to go to some event with, your kid. And you have no winter gear in the car, and it's middle of winter. But, hey, my car's got heat, man. I don't need to worry about it. You go off the road, you end up in the woods, it's late, no one's there, no one's on the road, your phone either broke or you lost it or it's not working. What are you going to do? You can't start a fire. You could stay in your vehicle, but that's going to get cold too if it doesn't start or if you run out of gas. What's your plan? If you don't have any shelter, you don't have any sleeping bags, you have no way. That's a case where, hey, you know what? If you would have had either a satellite messenger or a satellite phone, and you had no signal, depending on where you were, you still could have gotten emergency services to respond. Just stuff like that, man. You got to think about all that stuff, especially if you have family. You want to go the lone wolf and just wing it, you can do it. You might be okay, you might not. But are you really going to take that risk with your son or your daughter or your wife? Maybe if you don't like your wife, then maybe you don't take as many precautions, but I didn't say that because that's terrible. But you know what I mean. You really got to think about all this stuff. I mean, think about right now the hundreds of thousands of people that live in that LA County area, if not more. Think about how many of them are thinking, oh my goodness, I need to be doing things different. Especially the people that are close to where that happened, but maybe it hasn't reached them. Most of them are probably freaking out. And how many of those people had family or a friend or supplies at another location where if they had to dip out and go to an alternate or a contingency? Probably none of them. Even the rich people, even the people in the $5 million homes, most of them probably have no supplies, even though they have the means to do it. Like a lot of people on here sometimes have to spend a long time putting together a really good high quality kit, and sometimes they have to piecemeal it together and they have to make sacrifices to really get, a good amount of stuff that's quality together. But think about all the people that are living in $1 million houses that don't even have any freeze-dried food or anything. It's just crazy. Yeah, Gallants. Definitely think about off-site storage for sure. 100%. You can get like the smallest, even if it's, just try to find like the smallest, storage locker you can. But keep in mind, if you don't use outside storage and you use inside storage, you may not be able to get in there when you want to get in there. So preferably outside storage would be better, unless you're willing to break in for the inside storage, which would be fine if it was like a grid down type of event. But yeah, so Gallants, really, when you think about it, when you start putting together your PACE plan, if you already haven't, you're going to want a storage location between point A and point B, so between your primary and your alternate. You're also going to want a cache point between B and C, which would be your contingency and your emergency. And then at your emergency location, whether that's a cabin or whatever it may be, your drop-dead option, you want to have a cache close to that location as well. Not just if you lose your pack or you need more. It's really for resupply. So if you get, let's say your alternate location is a 2-hour drive from your house. Well, how far is that if you have to walk? That could be half the day. It could be all day, depending on the weather. It could be 2 days. What happens if something happens between your primary and your alternate? What if you only get halfway there? What if you're stuck for more days than you thought, or you're stranded, and then you run out of food, or you run out of water, or you run out of ammo. You could run out of a lot of stuff. Well, you know that halfway between A and B, or B and C, there's that stupid mouse again, the little prick, that you have a cache location. And for those of you that want me to say cache, it's never going to happen. It's cache. C-A-C-H-E. I will not say cache. Anyway, you know that halfway between your primary and your alternate, or your primary and your contingency, or your contingency and your alternate, you have a cache spot. So preferably you have at least 3 spots where you have a cache. And if you want to have even more than that, even in the Northeast, just knowing that if the ground's froze, you can't get to them, you can have even more caches. Even if you just put a cache with some SOS emergency food rations, in the ground, in a couple locations, just minor stuff, maybe 1 box of ammo, maybe 1 water filter, maybe a little bit of medical gear, just enough to fit in a 6-inch tube, that's only a foot or 2. Bury it. In the spring, summer, and whenever the ground's not froze, that cache is available wherever you put it. And if it's going to freeze, put it in a storage or put it in an abandoned factory, wherever you can find a spot. It really depends on where you live. There's so many different variables as to where you can hide a cache. Just figure that out. That's why it's all about pre-planning. That's why I'm writing the book about pace planning for preparedness. And like I said, it's about 39,000 words, so it's probably in a small paperback like this size. I want to say this one, I don't know if this emergency home preparedness is more than 25 or 30,000 words. This one is only 152 pages. I believe my pace planning book, which I'm writing by myself, I'm not writing that one with EJ, will probably be 200 to 300 pages based on how many pages of a Word doc. I don't think I'm going to put any pictures because I'm really just cramming it with a ton of information. And actually, I can probably pull it up and tell you what the chapters are if you're curious. It's not going to be out for a while, but I still have to go through it another 3-4 times to make sure everything is the way I want it to sound. And then I'm not going to go through a publisher this time. We went through a publisher, EJ and I, with that book. But I'm going to go through Amazon's KDP, where you can make, I think, a minimum of 40% of your own profit, and they print it on demand, and you don't have to stock. You don't have to stock inventory. It's really, really good. And if you want to stock inventory, like I probably would put some books on the website, it's cheap, and you make way more money compared to using a publisher. All right, so I'm going to answer this question real quick before I go to that and tell you guys the chapters. Nightwolf says, if a grid down situation happened, but you only had 3 items to choose, which would they be? So for me, that would be pretty simple. I would want a knife, probably one of these, or the more Garberg. I would want, what the hell did I do with it? A single wall stainless steel bottle so I can boil water. And I like the Pathfinder bottle and cup set. So you have the bottle you can boil in and store water in. And it has the cup that's a little bit less ounces, but not a lot, that you could also boil water in and also store water in. My third item will be a ferrocerium rod, more than likely, because I know how to make tinder bundles in most areas. Now, when you say the 3 things, that's, I'm assuming, 3 things not including my EDC, because EDC would be what I have on me. And I always have a tourniquet, I always have a flashlight, I always have a multi-tool, I always have a little bit of fire starting gear, and you're going to want personal protection. That I would consider EDC. But if you're saying strip myself of all EDC, what are the 3 items? Probably still going to be a knife, probably still going to be the single wall stainless to boil water, and probably still going to be a ferro rod, as long as I get the striker with it. But I don't need it because the knives I use all the knives I use have a really sharp 90-degree back. If you have a knife that doesn't have a good 90-degree back, and if it's not made for survival and bushcraft, it might not, you're not going to get very good sparks. So the Mora Garberg Carbon Black has an amazing spine for sparks. So does this Tops knife. But the scraper is just as good. The scraper has a nice little sharp point on one end, and it's great. So that's what I would pick. A way to start a fire, because I can build my own shelter pretty much anywhere. And, I mean, honestly, you could build your own fire, too, if you had, if you made a bow drill set, but you need a knife to make a bow drill set. Could you make a knife if you know how to flint knap out of rocks? You could, but why would you if you can carry a real blade? All right, so not including. I mean, no matter what, I think I'm still going knife way to boil water, and ferro rod for fire. That's pretty much what I'm going with every time, no matter what. Because with a knife, you can build traps. You can do a lot of stuff to try to catch your own food. You can do foraging for food. As long as you can boil water and have enough water, you can get electrolytes from nature if you need them. I mean, when you need them, not if you need them. And starting a fire, I wouldn't take matches because I run out. I wouldn't take a lighter because I run out of fluid. But you can do thousands of strikes with a ferro rod. As long as you're good at collecting tinder and putting together the tinder bundle, you never have to worry about it. Do you recommend a single wall bottle? So I do like the Pathfinder single wall bottle and cup set, which I do sell on the website because I think it's one of the best. Sean Kelly with Corporal's Corner sells his own bottle set. I don't know if it comes with a cup. You can also, if you get like a Grail GeoPress, which I think we have some in stock, or you could buy them direct from Grail. We don't sell the cup that the bottle nests in, but they do, and it's actually also made by Pathfinder. So you can get a Grail water filter that'll filter viruses too, which really isn't that important in the United States, but still pretty decent. And you can put a stainless steel, slide it right into the cup. So it's kind of like a 2-in-1. But cheap, single wall stainless steel bottle. I only carry the Pathfinder, but there's plenty of good brands of single wall stainless steel bottles. There's a ton of them. All right, so I'm going to really quickly, because I really do have to go to bed, and I'm going to be not getting that much sleep tonight. I'm just going to quickly go over the chapters for this pace planning book, really quick. There's like 40 chapters. And I'm not going to be able to see comments while I go over this because I have this document open. So chapter 1 is going to be understanding pace and the importance in preparedness. Chapter 2 is understanding pace planning according to core human needs. So that would be shelter, fire, water, food, or the basic 4 core needs. Chapter 3 would be mastering shelter in pace planning. And then actually, I need to change that title because it goes over shelter, fire, water, food in that chapter. The next one is importance of caches. Chapter 5 is... I mixed this stupid chapter thing up. I got to fix this too. Chapter 5 is practical shelter solutions, building, crafting supplies. But that's more of a bushcraft. But that chapter layout is terrible. I got to change that. That's what happens when you slap stuff together. Chapter 6, navigation and site selection in pace. Chapter 7, the vital role of water. Oh, no, I did do the chapters right. I just have one of them out of order. Man, I got a lot of shit to fix. Number 8 is the essential role of food in survival. Chapter 9 is the crucial role of fire. Chapter 10, navigating, or land nav. Chapter 11, the lifeline of emergency signaling. Chapter 12, preparing for medical emergencies. Chapter 13, ensuring access to essential medications. Chapter 14 is the role of self-defense in survival. Chapter 15 is the importance of winter gear in survival. Chapter 16 is balancing weight and mobility in terms of bug-out bags. Chapter 17, adapting to harsh conditions. That's more like, very hot, humid places other than cold. Not cold, the complete opposite. Chapter 18, building awareness and tracking progress. Section 1 of that would be a gear assessment. There's also going to be a gear list in there. Section 2 of Chapter 18 will be notes and reflections and places for you to put your own gear for each of the shelter, fire, water, food. And there's some check boxes where you can put like what you're lacking, what you need to get, what kind of shape it's in. Chapter 19 is pace planning for families, mostly families with children. Chapter 20 is pace planning for elderly or disabled family members. Chapter 21, options for managing major medical ailments and preparedness. I'm just going to quickly swing back to the chat. All right, I'm good. I didn't miss anything. Chapter 22 is security and pace planning, protecting yourself and your resources. Chapter 23, the gray man theory in survival and preparedness. Chapter 24, the importance of family, community, and groups in preparedness. Chapter 25 is morale and entertainment, maintaining sanity in survival scenarios. Chapter 26, escape and evasion tools and techniques. Chapter 27 is all about situational awareness. Chapter 28 is logistics and transportation in survival scenarios. Chapter 20, and all of these have their own section that explains pace and gives you examples of primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. Chapter 29, financial preparedness in survival scenarios. Chapter 30, long-term preparedness in survival scenarios. Chapter 31, specialty environments in survival scenarios. Chapter 32 is emergency communication in survival scenarios. Chapter 33, and I swear we're almost done, is redundancy in knowledge and skills for preparation. Chapter 34 is specialized scenarios in survival training. That chapter has, things about nuclear fallout and some very specific specialized scenarios. Chapter 35, legal and ethical considerations in survival situations. Chapter 36, the importance of faith in God during survival scenarios. Chapter 37, advanced training for survival preparedness. Chapter 38 is the acknowledgments and a thank you, mostly to the instructors that we've made films with over the years and a few other people. And the last chapter, 39, there's not 40, is the glossary and reference, which is basically, it goes over terminology like SHTF, which is shit hit the fan, and other survival terminology that some people may not know what it is. So it's about just under 40,000 words. And like I said, it's probably going to be at least 200 pages. And since I'm going to self-publish on Amazon, it's probably not going to be very expensive. Even if it's 300 pages, maybe I price it at like $19.99 or $24.95 at the most, depending on how many pages it is. And remember, there won't be pictures inside. There'll be a good cover. My son will probably have to make it. But the book is going to be just packed with information. And I'm not gonna put out a book that says, "Ooh, it's 350 pages," when 100 of those pages are basically because there's a shitload of pictures in there. I just want information, and I want a nice, clear understanding of how all this stuff works and how to put all your plans together. Because literally, this is just a book on pace planning in relation to the core 4 needs and in relation to preparedness in general. I mean, really, I could probably make this 100,000 words or 200,000 words, but pace planning for preparedness, maybe I'll make another one in the future that's a little more advanced in certain topics, but I think it should be a good read. I think at a minimum it's going to be 200 pages. So, I'll put the table of contents, of course, in the beginning. I'll put the glossary in the back. It'll be easy to navigate through. I think it'll be good. Assuming my information doesn't suck. Oh, yeah, Gallants, Chapter 40, Addendum, ham radio. Well, one of those chapters was survival communication, and I believe there is a section on ham radio in there. It's not like crazy, super detailed. Again, this is pace planning. A lot of it is kind of breaking down what your primary should be or could be, what your alternate should be or could be, what your contingencies are, and what your emergencies are. It's obviously a lot more detailed than that because nobody's just going to look at checklist and bullet points, so it's got a lot more info. But you might be right. I may need to put more info about ham radio in there. I have to go back. I kind of scratched through that chapter. Well, I mean, really, over time, putting all these chapters together, I still need to go through it all, literally paragraph by paragraph, fix the chapters if anything's out of order, because, a lot of the time when you're just putting shit out in your mind, it just kind of, it gets a little discombobulated. So I need to make sure that it's all coherent and that it's all in the right order. Because like when I was reading through the chapters, I could already tell I screwed up some of the orders. Gallants, do you recommend where to buy that book in front of you? So this book you can get on Amazon. There's a link in my bio for this. It's still on sale. I think it's only $13.49. It's actually a pretty good deal. For a couple weeks, it was number 1 in security and something category. And it was also number 1 in like 3 categories for a short amount of time. And I think it's made its way down the list. But now I want to look and see what it is right now. And we paid for 0 advertising for it either. We didn't do anything like that. I mean, obviously, EJ talked about it on his social media. Corporal's Corner on YouTube made a video. That made a pretty big difference. And Survival Lily, we sent her a book overseas, and we're waiting for her to make a video too. Yeah, it's still $13.49. And let's see, where is it at in the rankings? Not that it matters. Amazon rankings aren't like... It's dropped down to number 13 in security, how-to, and home improvement. It dropped down to 132 in survival and emergency preparedness, and it's 214 in hiking and camping. It's a fairly basic book. It's not like crazy detailed, but it's a good beginner book, and it's good for people that are already prepared. It kind of gives you a little bit more insight and information. You could also get this book direct from EJ if you go to ejsnyder.com, and he has a bundle, I think. I have to look because I don't know what's in the bundle. It's a little more money. It's like $36, but it's autographed, and he'll personalize it for you as well. But I think he's got something else in his bundle. I got to go look. It's a little slow with my VPN running. All right, let's see. Book bundle. I really should remember what's in this book bundle. Hold on. All right, so in the book, for if you get it direct from EJ, it's got a personally autographed copy. It's got an EJ Snyder patch and an autographed card, as well as his autograph in the inside cover of the book. There's that mouse again. You little prick. I got to get that one. Now he's just taunting me. Yeah, so I think you get a patch, an autographed card, and an autographed copy of the book. But it's like 30-something bucks. Or you could spend $13.49, just pick it up on Amazon. I think you can also get it in most bookstores because this book went through a legitimate publisher, which is unfortunate because we make way less money in a really small percentage, and the publisher makes pretty much most of it. But whatever. That's why the Pace Planning book is definitely going to be self-published on Amazon, so I can print out my own copies through Amazon really cheap, and I can still make at least 40% of the sales. And it'll be prime shipping, so it'll still ship out, within 2 days to most people. I'm hoping, January 14th? I'm hoping I can get this book out in a month. It just depends on how long it takes, because sometimes when you're putting a lot of stuff together, like I said, sometimes you get a little discombobulated, stuff gets shifted around. But I also have to go back through, I have to format it, I have to edit it, because all that stuff has to happen before you put it up on Amazon, because if it's not right, it's your fault. So I really need to make sure that I can go through it. I got to probably put it through Grammarly and check for, grammar and spelling and stuff like that. It's way easier to put it through a system. You could put it through AI, but AI is difficult because AI will do a lot of awesome stuff for you, but it does it in small chunks. I don't think it has the capability yet. Like if I put the book in and said, hey, format this and edit it and format it for a paperback version, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it could do it. I think it's too much information. I think you could do it if it was like less than 1,000 words. I could be wrong, but maybe someday you'll be able to pop it in and be like, hey, pretend you're an editor and do the editor's job for me so I don't have to pay somebody to do it. But until then, I'm going to have to do it myself. And I got to make sure that everything that's written in there is, I know it's accurate, but I need to make sure it flows. I need to make sure it sounds right. But again, the biggest part is I probably have to go through the whole thing like 4 or 5 times. Because if it doesn't flow right, it's going to be hard to read. You know what I mean? And I already know it doesn't flow right because I have that one shelter chapter kind of messed up. Because all I did was go through the whole thing and then put the chapters on the front. And I didn't fix the flow yet. And I still didn't even fix the writing to make sure it's good. So I need to do all that stuff. But I think I can crack that out in a month, honestly. I think I can get that out in maybe even less than a month if I really take some time and do it. We shall see. But I think it'll be a good book. And most of the knowledge from that book comes from, like I said, the instructors we've made films with, trained with a lot of these guys, and the films, just the films alone, producing them and going through and all the content and all the, man, you'd be amazed how much stuff you can learn working with like some of these guys. It's pretty crazy. So, and I'm not even an instructor. I wouldn't even consider myself 1/10 of an instructor. Like, I would literally be the worst Boy Scout on planet Earth compared to someone like Graybeard Green Beret or EJ Snyder or any of these guys that are really professionals. I just happen to have a lot of knowledge in the noggin. And if you have a lot of knowledge and you do a lot of practice and you can do a lot of this stuff in the field yourself, you can learn a lot, even without going to live training. You should still go to live training, but. And again, a lot of these skills are perishable. If you haven't built a bow drill in 3 years, you're probably going to suck at it if you go to build one today. I don't think I put together a bow drill. I think I made one with my son, but it was a few years back. So if that's the E in my emergency, I really need to practice that more often. So, but I usually will have flint and steel, and I know how to make char cloth, so I don't really need a bow drill. It's not really necessary because you can just with the sparks, and char cloth will take a spark pretty well, and if you know how to keep it lit and you have the right tinder bundle, you're all set. It's not as easy as it sounds, but if you do it and you know how to do it, it's pretty simple. But I don't care who you are. Everybody needs to work on stuff. You know what keeps these instructors sharp is that they teach a lot of live courses and they do a lot of online training. So they're constantly, even if they're not training, they're teaching training. So they're constantly going through the skills, and it's basically becoming muscle memory. And I'm telling you, some of these guys, if you have a chance, you need to train with some of these top instructors in person because you will learn a lot. But you're on a budget, go to our website, get some online training, and again, go through chapter by chapter or skill by skill. Buy some cheaper gear if you want to just try it out from wherever, Walmart, Amazon, and just train with it. Watch one skill and then go practice it till you become good at it. When you become good at it, do it in the rain, do it in the snow, do it in the wind. Get good at it in all kinds of conditions. And as you go through that training, I mean, we probably have over 40 to 50 hours worth of instructional training on all kinds of different subjects. So teach yourself. You'll save a ton of money. And then if you get some scratch together and you want to take some live courses to get more in depth, do that too. I mean, I don't know, there really isn't many categories that we don't have instructional films. And it's better than trying to piece together, 25 YouTube videos. You're better off just going through a specific subject and learning as much as you can, practicing, training, and getting proficient at it. And that's how you build skills. It's never too late to start. But if you haven't started, today is the day you should start. Even if you don't get training from us, even if you just go to YouTube and watch some really, guys that have good followings and that have proven that they actually know what they're talking about, just go to YouTube. If you want to learn about, how to make a good tinder bundle in the Midwest or the Northeast or the Southeast or the Southwest, figure out what kind of trees basically figure out how to make a good tinder bundle, which will help you make a fire in most all conditions. And then go buy a crappy ferro rod on Amazon for like $2, $5, just to try it out, just to learn skills. If you want to start off cheap, just do it. I wouldn't have a lot of cheap gear in the long run because it's not going to last very long. But if you're just getting into it and you're just starting, buy whatever you got to buy, wherever you got to buy it. Go to the dollar store. Buy a friggin' shower curtain at the dollar store for a temporary shelter if you really can't put together a bug-out bag for your vehicle. Buy some candles, buy some matches. You'd be shocked at how much crap you can get at the dollar store that could actually save your life, at least maybe once, if it doesn't fail. But I mean, basic stuff like a shower curtain for a shelter, matches. You could probably get some kind of stainless setup where maybe you can even boil water in it. There's a lot of crap you can buy in the dollar store that really could save your life. Again, in the short term, you're not going to want to be living on that stuff forever because you probably won't. So that's it. Start now. Start today. Start tomorrow. It's probably late tonight to start, but start tomorrow. Do whatever you got to do. Again, don't want to buy the full online training? Don't. Go watch some good YouTube videos. There's a ton of guys on YouTube that have a ton of skills. Yes, if you get a whole course, it's way easier, but I'm not saying you can't do it online. You can do it on YouTube, even if you piece it together, skill by skill. But go through the core 4. Learn about shelter first, because that's pretty much one of your top priorities, because 3 hours in the wrong weather without shelter, you're dead. 3 days without water, you're dead. 3 weeks without food, you're dead. So go through it as the priorities. Go through shelter, water, food, fire, whichever. You can do it whichever way you want. Just make sure those core 4 needs you're learning about first, and take pace into account. So if you're learning about fire, create your own pace plan of what you want to learn and how you want to learn it. Create a pace plan for shelter. Create a pace plan for water purification. And create a pace plan for all that stuff. All the core 4. Then you can get into land nav. Then you can get into signaling. Then you can get into more robust tools. And you can get into more supplemental gear. There's just so much. And it's really not hard to do. Again, don't want to spend any money? Don't. You could find a lot of stuff. I mean, you could spend really short money if you're just looking to practice, or you're just looking to learn, or you want your kids to learn. And when you get the really good gear, you'll be like, oh my God, why am I using this garbage? This is amazing. When you go from like a crappy Amazon ferro rod to a Craftig, which is really soft but not too soft, and it throws insane sparks, you'll never go back to another ferro rod for the rest of your life. That's the reason why I don't sell anything but the Craftig, because yeah, there's plenty of cool rods out there, and there's plenty that'll work fine, but not that I found Only one brand I found that throws as good as Sparks, and I don't remember the name of it, or I'd tell you, but it's been a while. I don't remember who makes them. But that's why we only sell two kinds, the 5-inch and the 8-inch of the same brand, because they're amazing. And you still got to have a little bit of skill to learn how to properly use a ferro rod, you know? There's techniques where, some guys will say you can go real fast with the scraper, but a lot of guys will have you pin your hand to your foot and then scrape like that so you're not pushing into your tinder bundle. There's a lot of different ways. I think pinning it to your foot's a little bit easier, but hey, different techniques for different people. Sometimes kids may not be able to get a good Sparks. You got to get them one that's easier to use. I showed one of those in one of my videos. Some of them that are better for children and easier to use with shorter scrape without using a lot of elbow grease, because some kids aren't going to be able to do it. Or maybe they stick to stormproof matches and lighters and, like that Tindar wick I showed once. It's basically just a treated wick. It'll burn for an hour. Even if you have your lighter, don't waste your fluid. Light the end of the Tindar, and that'll burn basically like a lighter or a match for over an hour. Put it out, you just slide the piece up, put it out, and you can reuse that thing for a long, long time. So why waste resources? You know what I mean? Why waste lighter fluid? Why waste matches when you can light that, or you can even light like one of those 4-hour candles? There's just so many different options, and there's so much information out there. And again, you don't have to spend a ton of money initially if you don't want to. You don't even have to spend money on training. Just get some really good high-quality training from YouTube. As long as you're practicing and training and learning the things you're watching and not just absorbing and not doing it, then you'll be fine. And then eventually, buy the top-of-the-line gear, get the top-of-the-line training, whether it's online or live or both, and go from there. Literally, you can start tomorrow or tonight. Maybe you don't work tomorrow. Just don't wait. Don't wait, because you never know what life's going to bring your way. Life can be insanely unpredictable, especially now with the administration change, with the powers that be probably going to pull some crazy nonsense, with all the stuff going on in the Middle East, the stuff with Russia and Ukraine, the stuff with China possibly going after Taiwan. There's so much stuff that could happen. I like to think, and I don't think we are, people like to think that, you know what, we're going to go back into a golden age, things are going to get really good, but I'm a little worried things are going to get a lot worse before they get better, because there's a lot of pushback and a lot of crazy stuff that could still happen. I got to say goodnight to my son real quick because he's going to bed. He has school tomorrow. I should be in bed too. I'm already 21 minutes past when I said I was going to bed. But hey, I'm passionate about this stuff. I like talking about it. I like going through stuff with people on here. I like learning just as much as anybody else. That's why before I like doing podcasts with guys like Dr. Arthur Bradley and EJ and Angry American and anybody else that I can get on either a podcast or a live stream. I'm going to do it. Nightwolf, where do you get the Stormproof matches you showed earlier? So you can get the box of the Stormproof matches on our website. You can get the Titan Stormproof matches, the really good ones. I don't stock those, and I don't know why I don't stock those, actually. I should. But I would just go on Amazon. Actually, I'm going to look right now. I think you can get the Titan Stormproof matches almost anywhere. Let me just look it up. Titan Stormproof matches. It's basically this Titan Stormproof match kit. Yeah. Ooh, Amazon. Ooh, damn. Oh, so Amazon has one for $23, but that comes with 2 boxes of Stormproof matches and the Titans. Yuko is the company that makes the Stormproof. You can go right to Yuko and you can buy the Titan Stormproof matches. I think it's like it's $13. $12.99 for the Titan Stormproof match kit right from yukogear.com. So if you go direct to yukogear.com, they make a lot of good stuff. So, and I really need to add those Titan Stormproof matches to my website. I have no idea why I don't sell them. I have a ton of the regular Stormproof matches, which are good for backups because they're cheap. They're a lot cheaper than the Titans, but you definitely want the Titans because they are amazing. I would rather you buy the Titans from Yuko than go buy the Stormproof matches for me, unless you're using them as a backup, because I really think the Titans are a much, much better product. Let's see. They got a lot of stuff on here on UCO's site, but it looks like that's probably the cheapest, $12.99 for the Titan Match Kit. But I mean, you can check it on Google. You might be able to find a cheaper one. But remember, the UCO Stormproof matches is not the same as the UCO Titan. The Titan are much bigger, and they will burn longer than the normal Stormproof matches. You guys could, well, you're probably not going to look for it, but if you wanted to see that video where I put it in a cup of water and it still burns, you could watch it burning underwater. It's pretty awesome. Or you could buy them, and you could make your own video, and maybe your video will go viral. You never know. Can't hurt till you try. Yeah, a couple other companies sell those. REI actually sell. Oh no, never mind. Yeah, REI sells the UCO Titan Match Kit for $11.95 instead of the $12.99. You can get them at Cold Cracker Bushcraft. That guy's a pretty good guy. For $11.95. Yeah, you can get them around $11-12, pretty much anywhere. But they're really awesome. I love those things. I carry the box and the smaller ones because sometimes when I get to the job site, if it's freezing, the locks will freeze. And if I can't get the key to fit in the lock, I've tried a few different de-icers. They don't work because it's just way too cold up here, especially if there's moisture in the lock. So I use one small stormproof match and boom, the key goes right in. They work perfect because they're such high heat. They have to be based on how they're made, to burn underwater or burn in the rain and the wind. So they'll get through a lock. They'll get through ice in a lock with one match. It chars the shit out of your locks, but it's fine. All right, I got time for a couple more questions, if anyone has any questions. And I want to know what you guys thought of the stream. I think we packed a ton of information in tonight's stream, and I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you'll be back tomorrow, because I do plan to be here pretty much every day. And to help, during the day now, I've been writing topics so that I actually have some topics and some talking points. So if the audience isn't really that engaged with the stream, I still have plenty of stuff to talk about and plenty of stuff to go over. And hey, maybe we can even start going through some of the small sections of my book about pace planning, and we could talk about that stuff too, and we can kind of make the stream like a 4 or 5 part series where we go over a lot of the stuff that will be in the book. I'm not going to give away too much because I do want to sell the book at some point. So I'm not going to read the whole thing to you guys on stream for a week, because then you'll be like, I don't need to buy your book. I already have the recording. I'll just watch the recording and listen to all that shit you said. I'm going to spend money on that. What am I going to do that for? But I really am going to try to price it very cheap. I'm thinking $19.99, but man, I don't know. If I get 300 pages, could be $24.95. I don't know. I probably still would do $19.99 just because it's a good price point. Maybe even cheaper. I don't know. We'll have to see. Could be cheaper. I don't need to make a lot of money on these. I really would rather get the information out, honestly. Like even with my son's book about, a teen's journey to faith and Christianity, if I already told him, I already bought like 60 copies to sell, and then I'm going to buy another couple hundred if they do sell. And if they don't, we're going to give them away. Give them away to people that are interested and want to learn more about it. We're going to give them away to, as many teenagers and youth that we could find. So if they don't sell, they don't sell. Don't really care. It's the information that's more important. So if we don't sell very many, we'll give the rest away and feel good about doing it. So life isn't always going to be about money, especially with as crazy as the world is right now, as crazy as the country is, as polarized as people are everywhere. We really, really need to start connecting back with each other and being, more forgiving. We need to be more empathetic. We just need to stop butting heads with absolutely everything. Think about the 1 day or maybe the 2-day period right after 9/11 if you lived in the United States, especially if you lived anywhere near New York, but really anywhere in the country. You remember how nice people were? You remember how empathetic and how caring people were, saying hi to you and asking you how you were, people you didn't even know. How long did that last? A day, 2 days, maybe a week in some areas, and then everybody went back to being dicks. I don't know about you, but man, I don't want another tragedy to bring us together again like that. That's why I think it's insanely important to have friends and family and groups that you trust and come up with a place plan together, because you may save each other's lives. Don't try to be the lone wolf. You're just going to end up dead most of the time, unless you're super badass, and you still might end up dead. Night Wolf, good night. The streams are awesome, and I got a lot of knowledge from them. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And unless something crazy happens, should be doing it every day. And again, I'm going to make some topics up so we're not just kind of spinning around talking about nonsense. And hopefully we'll get more people in the stream and more people will ask questions and we can really get a ton of good information because usually when someone has good questions, a lot of other people probably had the same question. And if I don't have the answer, I know people who do. And maybe someone else in the stream has a better answer than me. And it's a great way, like when the guy mentioned earlier about using the self-storage. That's an amazing idea, especially in the Northeast. I don't have any of those, but I think I'm going to now. I have plenty of cache locations, and I have some in mind that I need to still set up, but I'm kind of liking that idea. So hopefully we can all learn from each other. That's what this is all about. This isn't about just somebody coming on and telling you a bunch of crap. This is about learning about preparedness and survival and as much as we can and trying to help each other. Because someday something big's going to happen, and we're going to need each other way more than we think. So who do you want to be when that happens? Do you want to be the guy with no skills, no training, no preparation? Or do you want to be the person that not only can help yourself and your family, but you can also help others? And in turn, those others may have skills that you may need. And even if they don't, you could teach them some skills, and at least you'll have more people to provide security, to protect yourself, your family, your resources. It's a crazy world. Anything can happen. So you really need to come together, and you really need to get some skills and some gear and some training. And again, I don't care where you buy it. You don't want to ever buy a single item from us. That's perfectly fine. If you emailed me and said, hey, man, I really like your crafting fire rods. Where else can I get them? I might think it's weird because I sell them, but I'll tell you where else to get them. Go right to Uberleben. You can buy them right from the company that makes them. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm going to ignore that guy. I'm not going to email him back. I'm going to tell you where you can get it. I got another friend, Survival Gear BSO. He's a good friend of mine. We got to use his family's house for one of our films, and he has a store. It's better than Survival Summit. He's got a lot of stuff that I don't, and I think it's great. I think it's a great store. And I send people there sometimes, and I sell the same stuff. Not all the same stuff, but, this isn't a zero-sum game. I don't care where you get stuff. Just don't buy really shitty stuff from really hacky places or places that are going to sell you a bunch of crap. Again, unless you're just looking to go cheap to do some training. Just be careful where you buy stuff. That's all. Gallants, your gear is useless unless you practice with it. Time to figure out is not when you need it. Exactly. You guys would be shocked at the amount of people who buy even really good top-of-the-line gear and have no idea how to use any of it. Every once in a while, I haven't gotten an email like this in a while, but I'll get an email that says, hey, man, this ferro rod doesn't work. My first question is, did you scrape the protective coating off of it before you tried to scrape it? So that I already know that they don't know how to build a tinder bundle because they don't know how to use the ferro rod. So they probably don't know how to build a proper tinder bundle, and they definitely can't do it in bad conditions. But, man, people get gear happy, and they just buy a ton of stuff. And they don't ever put a single minute into training or practice or anything. You just can't do that. Because, again, like Gallant said, your gear is going to be useless. You know who it'll be useful to? Someone like me. So you can just give it to me. I'll make up a P.O. box so I don't have to give you my real address, and you can send me all the stuff. And don't worry, I will take care of it for you. I'll clean it every once a week. I'll put it in a really nice backpack. Or maybe we'll even do a giveaway and we'll give all your stuff away. Because if you're never going to train with it, you don't need it. Because it's not going to help you. Very good point, Gallants. It really happens more often than you think. Or you get the guy who buys like a $3,000 AR-15 and he doesn't even know how to zero it. And he's never taken it to the range. He doesn't even shoot well with it. And he wouldn't know how to zero it to save his life. Like, that's just crazy. Why put that much money into something if you don't have any training with it? It's probably not even going to help you. Gallants, next time it rains, go outside and try to start a fire, for example. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, I tell people all the time, if you get really, really proficient at fire starting and building tinder bundles and doing all that stuff in the good weather, go out and try it in the rain. Go out and try it in the snow. Go out and try it when it's insanely windy and see how hard it is. Because all those people that'll occasionally put dumb comments like, just need a Bic lighter, that's all you need, and you'll be fine. Yeah. You know what? You. Okay? I self-beat myself. It's not that easy. And those are guys that are probably just throwing gasoline out there and throwing a match. So, I don't know. We are here in Western North Carolina. Man, I hope you guys are... That area is... North Carolina is so much crazy stuff going on there. I'm glad there's a lot of people that are out there helping because it doesn't seem like the government is doing a damn thing. Maybe they are, but that's not what I'm hearing. It's pretty crazy. And again, since he mentioned North Carolina... Please reach out to EJ Snyder from Naked and Afraid either on Facebook or Instagram, or go to his website and email info@ejsnyder.com. He has some locations and some businesses that he's got set up with if you want to send supplies like, winter supplies or foods or tents or anything you can spare. Get a hold of EJ or get a hold of some other groups that are down in that area and donate some stuff down there. Especially if you have extra stuff. Maybe you have clothes that don't fit you anymore. Maybe you have clothes that don't fit your kids anymore. Send that stuff to North Carolina. Somebody has to take care of the people in this country. Same thing with California. If you can get some stuff out there, I'm a little hesitant about giving it to certain organizations because they have a lot of overhead and you don't know how much of your money is going to where. But there are a lot of good groups out there that most of the money actually goes to the people. So do what you can. Try to help out your neighbor. Same as you would your family. And maybe that'll happen to you someday too. You just can't. You can't be the lone wolf. Can't be selfish. I mean, you can, but it's no way to live. All right, I've talked too much. I got to get the hell out of here. I got to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's 9:30 Eastern. I'll be back tomorrow. I don't think I have much to do after work, so I should be on by 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if you want to see the somewhat lame pre-stream on TikTok, I'll probably pre-stream at like 6:30 for like 10 minutes just to say hi to my old streamer crowd that I used to stream on all the time. Maybe I'll even go back on Clapper for 5 minutes and just say, hey, man, go check out the simulcast on YouTube, Facebook, and X. And again, if you missed any of this stream and you want to watch it again, it should be live on all those 3 channels, YouTube, Facebook, and X. So if you want to watch it again or you missed something in the beginning and you want to scroll through it, you can watch it like a normal video. And this stream is going to be 2 hours and 38 minutes. Didn't quite beat the almost 3 hours we did on the first one, but I think we packed in probably more information on this stream than any other stream so far. Anyway, I'm glad you guys came. For all the people that stuck with it all the way to the end, I appreciate it.